Sign up today with BetMGM, the exclusive betting partner of The Athletic, and get a chance to bet $1 and win $100. Plus, get a free 1-year subscription to The Athletic. Just signing up at BetMGM.com/Maze to take advantage of this special offer from the king of sportsbooks. That's BetMGM.com/Maze. New customer offer, paid in bonus dollars. Visit BetMGM.com for terms and conditions.
Must be 21 years of age or older to wager. Colorado, Indiana, Iowa, Michigan, New Jersey, Nevada, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Virginia, or West Virginia only. Excludes Michigan disassociated persons. Please gamble responsibly. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-522-4700 in Colorado, Nevada, and Virginia. 1-800-270-7117 for confidential help in Michigan. 1-800-GAMBLER in New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and West Virginia. And 1-800-BETS-OFF in Iowa. In Tennessee, call or text the Red Line at 800-889-9789. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call 1-800-9-WITH-IT in Indiana. Promotional offer not available in Nevada.
This is the Athletic Football Show's Draft Night Special.
With the first pick, the Jacksonville Jaguars select,
featuring Robert Mays and Nate Tice, the Athletics draft guru Dane Brugler, and the one and only Lindsay Jones, senior NFL writer for The Athletic.
it's now my honor to announce that the NFL Draft is officially open.
Welcome to the Athletic Football Show Draft Night Special. I'm Robert Mays, and I'm very excited to be welcomed in person by my good friend Nate Tice. Nate, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great. We just sat down, right?
We just sat down. It has been a wild evening already. I mean, there's so much to get to. You know, we had a plan. We had a bunch of things we were going to talk about. A lot of that has already gone out the window. So right now we are sitting here watching the Eagles trade up to number 10 with the Cowboys, a rare interdivisional trade. I'm sure we will talk about that. I want to start, though, with a move that shocked both of us, and that is the Broncos drafting Patrick Surtain II at number 9. Not because we don't think Patrick Surtain Jr. is worthy of the 9th overall pick. I think he's a really, really good corner. I just wouldn't ascribe corner as the first need for the Denver Broncos. I mean, you look at their depth chart, it might be the last thing they need. They signed Ronald Darby in free agency. They went out and got Kyle Fuller. They already have Bryce Callahan there. They're going to run a 4-cornerback defense, I guess, is what's happening. And when you think about the quarterbacks that were on the board, it's easily, in my opinion, the most surprising thing that happened today. And Mac Jones didn't go to the Niners.
It was like, okay, that one made sense finally. But then this one, this one's really curious. It's like you said, really like Surtain. Like I actually, probably my favorite corner. Thank you. Really like Surtain, probably my favorite corner. Thank you, Ken. But no, I do think it's like, are they picking for the Packers? Is that what they're doing here? Because it's like, it's a hat on a hat kind of a thing. Yeah. It's like, and don't get me wrong, corner is a premium position. And that's kind of, I'm fine with investing in the premium positions, O-line, corner, edge rushers, or just pass rushers in general. And of course, quarterback, but it's like, you only have one quarterback. And it's kind of like, that's what I think the Broncos need to improve.
Well, obviously we saw the Teddy Bridgewater deal. They traded a 6th-round pick for him. It makes sense. You know, that's something we saw a mile away. We talked about that on multiple shows last week. I think it's the type of option with the defensive-minded head coach that makes sense. You want somebody that's going to keep the train on the tracks. It reminds me a little bit of what the Bears did last year with Foles and Trubisky. I don't think copying the Chicago Bears quarterback plan is exactly what you want to do. But it's funny. I was talking to Lindsay Jones earlier, who's going to be joining us soon, as is Dane Brugler, as the draft goes on. So please keep an eye out for both of them. I was talking to Lindsay, and it's almost as if the Broncos have a similar quarterback plan to the one the Bears have. And every 5 years, they stumble into one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time, ass backwards. And that seems like where we are right now. Because before the draft started today, obviously, everyone has been talking about Aaron Rodgers and what might be happening. So if it's true, which it does seem like it is, that the Broncos are putting together a deal for Aaron Rodgers, or an offer at least, maybe that threw a wrench into them possibly drafting a quarterback in the top 10, which changes the entire complexion of the rest of the draft.
The entire NFL. It's like, that's why it's just so curious with the thing. Because I just got to keep saying is just, Broncos didn't need help there. And that's why it's just like, what? And right now, as we see, is DeVonta Smith is going to the Eagles, which is like, I love DeVonta Smith. He's probably my favorite receiver in this draft, even though there's a bunch of good ones I've already got, and there's more to come. But it's these kind of like, that is like just so interesting to me too, is not only taking Surtain there, but then also just screwing over the Cowboys the pick before.
Yes.
And it's like everyone it made sense. Okay, the Cowboys are going to get a corner, one of those top two guys, Horner, Surtain, and it's just going to fall into their lap. And all of a sudden it's like, oh, I'm sure that was not a lot of fun for them to all of a sudden just that goes away. So that's like just the domino effects that other teams can affect your team.
Absolutely.
Even if you have nothing to do with it. Also, the Cowboys are like, whoa. No, Broncos aren't going corner. I'm sure their pro staff, when they were doing needs, they're like, we don't have to worry about that. And then all of a sudden they take a corner.
It's shocking. I mean, I think if you would play this out 100 times in the Cowboys' minds, those two corners going off at 7 and 8 or 8 and 9 would never have happened. Correct. So that's why you are left scrambling a little bit.
Yep.
So talk about Horn to Carolina a little bit. Not surprising in that they needed a corner, but he's a man-heavy corner. They played a lot of zone last year. You'd have to assume they would probably fold a little bit more press coverage into what they do moving forward if they have a guy like that. It almost reminds me a little bit of William Jackson going to Washington, where when you get more talent at corner, it allows you to do a few different things. But obviously, this means the Panthers did not draft a quarterback. They traded for Sam Darnold. They trade multiple picks for Sam Darnold. And it does seem like they're going to roll with Sam Darnold next year. They have faith that Joe Brady, the skill position players that they have, the infrastructure in place in Carolina is such that they can get a lot more out of Sam Darnold than the Jets did.
Yeah, and what is curious, it's one of those, it was Phil Snow running quarters and all that zone because they had to?
Yes.
Or because is that what he prefers?
And that's what you don't know until you get better players.
Correct. And that's why, Rex Ryan, like anytime you get a blitz happy, I'm not saying Phil Snow is, but any blitz happy scheme, they're like, we need a man corner because they have to live in that world. That's why those Jets defenses with Rex Ryan were able to just be unlocked when all of a sudden you just had Revis Island just taken off his side. And that's just what's curious.
Oh my God.
What happened?
The Bears just traded up.
Okay.
This is
okay. Here
sorry,
we go.
We're reacting to this in real time here.
Justin Fields is available.
This is ridiculous. I'm so glad we started at pick 10 and not pick 15.
Yeah, exactly.
I cannot believe this is happening right now. All right, so let's wait for a second. Obviously, we think this is for a quarterback.
Yep.
So it would make sense that it would be Justin Fields, right?
It would.
I mean, you're not making this move for Mac Jones. Nope. If they are, I don't know what I'll do.
Yeah,
I don't know how I'm going to react.
Andy Dalton plus. You already have a month of them.
So let's talk about it. Well, no reason to speculate about this now.
Yep.
Let's wait until the pick happens.
4 minutes.
So going back to the Carolina for a second here. Obviously, the corner thing makes sense. Do you think that Sam Darnold in that system? Let's do this. Would you have rather had Justin Fields? Do you think that if you could just drop Justin Fields in there, you'd think that it should not have precluded them from doing this? So Schefter is now on TV. I'm sorry, I'm like distracted.
Yeah,
this is really hard for me to do.
I'll distract you real quick. No, and I think I would have gone Fields because it's younger. It kind of alleviates some headaches that you might cause for yourself. If Sam Darnold blows up or if he just busts, then you're totally out of the whack. With Fields, at least you have a couple years to just buy yourself. But we never know what the Panthers' timeline is.
And that's the difference.
Yeah.
That's we've talked about that with Carolina for so many times since this new regime came in, and it really does feel like there isn't a ton of patience there.
No.
They went out and signed Teddy Bridgewater before they had to do that.
Yep.
They went out and they didn't spend a ton of money in free agency last year, but they also didn't tear it down totally. There was a decent amount of dead money, but they still weren't aggressive, but they added pieces on a timeline that a lot of teams wouldn't necessarily add pieces.
Yep.
So that's why it's just a little bit that's why it's a little bit confusing and a little bit hard to understand exactly what they're doing. So Justin Fields is walking back into his living room right now. This is terrible radio, but it seems like this is happening.
Did you wake up today thinking this was even overrun?
So I've gone over this a few different times in my mind about whether I want this to happen. Because do I want this regime spending more draft capital, going up and making this aggressive sort of move for this guy or anyone?
Yeah.
Do I want more time and more leeway for the Pace Nagy regime? And I think for this guy, we'll see what the price is. Obviously, that's going to be part of this conversation. I think he's really special.
I do too.
I think that he is super talented. I think that we've overthought this. When you watch what type of player he is, the ability that he has, I am ready to attach myself to this guy for the next several years.
I love it.
We'll see what happens. Who's the coaching staff, everything else. That's the problem, is how does it align? Is this the group that I want to get the most out of a player as talented as Justin Fields? If it is Justin Fields,
I know.
And
then if it's Mac Jones, then I'll carry the show for a little bit.
I think the answer is yes. I think that even though those things are a little bit disjointed in my mind, it's still worth it to me. It is still worth making a play about this sort of guy. From going from 20 to 11, it's not going from 20 to 4.
Correct.
So we'll see what this is. Let's say it's next year's first and a little bit more. I do that.
That's fine.
I do that
because there's no quarterbacks next year.
This is what they screwed up in 2017. These guys went in the same range in 2017. It was Deshaun Watson and Patrick Mahomes right here.
Yep.
This exact same range. And look at when the Chiefs, the first round pick they gave away, the Texans gave away in that deal, they've never thought about them again because of the guys that they got. You would hope that Justin Fields is that guy for the Bears. If it is Justin Fields, nothing is off the table with this team in quarterback. Nothing.
They're about to announce it, but we say that the stars, you shouldn't squint.
Yes.
It doesn't matter what the regime is. You don't have to squint with Justin Fields. So that's the one caveat, not the caveat, but the one saving grace with it.
Here we go. I can't believe this happened.
How good are you?
I can't believe it happened, but it's amazing that we're live and watching this happen.
How good are your reading lips?
Oh man. That just really dragging it out here.
Yeah.
Come on now.
Oh my God, he has 4 cards right now.
So I don't know what we're missing.
Yeah, I don't either.
That's the problem, because there's no volume on right now.
He has like 4 cards.
Oh goodness. Watch them trade up for a linebacker. Really? What are we doing here?
It's probably something serious, and now you look like the bad guy.
Just sitting here waiting. Now the draft-a-thon is here. You'd have to. I haven't seen it confirmed anywhere.
Okay.
Oh, this is torture. This
is amazing. This is amazing.
This is agonizing. I cannot.
All right, here we go. Pick is in. Oh, he's got a mask on, so we can't read the lips either.
This is going to be great for the podcast version of this.
All right.
I don't know. I can't believe this is happening. All right, so
here we go. All right. The 11th pick. Justin Fields. Wow.
It's really cool. It's really cool.
It was a great show, guys. So see,
it's really cool. And you know why?
Awesome.
And you know why it's really cool? Because when we did the quarterback show and we were talking about these guys and we were talking about this class, you and I both looked at each other as we were having that discussion and thought, why isn't he the second guy?
Yep.
Why not? Why are we overthinking this? Why are we getting to that point? And I talked to somebody, a GM in the league I really respect. And I was asking him the same questions, and he said, I think he's the second best guy. I think that he is the best. I would take him over everyone except for Lawrence. And that made me feel better about it. And that makes me excited about this. Obviously, we'll see what they had to do to trade up.
Yep.
But I really do feel like he's a special talent.
I do too.
I think he's the type of guy that just doesn't come around that often. And obviously, there are elements to his game that give you a little bit of pause. He is a little bit methodical. He does play a little bit slower than you want him to sometimes. He's not as creative as some of these other guys. And I think you and I discussed this before we even came on. I honestly think him falling and there being 3 quarterbacks that went over him is not an overreaction, but it is a reaction to the types of guys we've seen succeed recently. It's the Mahomes. It's even the Josh Allens, the guys that are loose and creative and make plays outside of structure. That's not really Justin Fields. As talented and as athletic as he is, he plays in the pocket.
Yep.
And
he's a quarterback.
He reminds me of Cam Newton in that way, even though I think that he's more accurate than Cam Newton.
Yep.
Which is what makes me excited about him.
Yep.
The fact that this guy is 6'4", 225, runs a 4.4 40, and is an accurate quarterback.
Yep.
Those are the boxes I want checked. That is, I can't believe this just happened.
I know, this is like surreal right now. I know. I'm like actually like to the Bears. and like I texted you the one time because
I'm so excited.
I know you are. I know honestly,
you are. I'm thinking more with my analytical brain than I am with my fan brain at this point, and I'm so excited. I'm really excited that Justin Fields is the quarterback of my team.
I know, and you're watching the highlights right now.
And it's so
wear the #1 jersey.
If you had told me while watching, and that 60-yard bomb that he completed on that skinny post that we just watched to Olave on the TV, that throw, I've gone back to that throw so many times when I've talked about him, just the ultra talent. It's just so apparent. When I watched him in that game and when I watched him make those throws, I never in a million years thought that he could be a quarterback of my team. I never in a million years thought it could be possible. And now
there it
is. Again, I'm torn a little bit just because is this the right regime to get the most out of him? Do we really want these guys to make this decision again? But if it's this guy, if it's a prospect of this quality, then I'm okay with it.
Yep. Well, like you said, when they trade up for Mahomes, the Chiefs did, or the Texans with Deshaun Watson, you got your guy. Who cares? Like everything else will solve itself. Everything else will figure it out itself. And, actually, as you watch him more too, it was like I think I texted you this because we were getting excited both watching him after we recorded that show, and you're like, yeah, man, like what am I missing with this guy? And I said to you, I was like, he's like a tiny Dante Culpepper. Yeah. It's even smarter. It's like he operates on time and does all like that. And the fact that Dante was so big and athletic, but he always operated from the pocket. Like you don't remember Dante could do the creation things and all that, but he wanted to operate from the pocket. He wants to be a quarterback. You're not molding this guy and going, he's a wild horse. We got to just, we got to build a skill set and polish. It's like, no, he has the polish.
It's so funny.
We're doing the other thing.
You want him to run more and you want him to run quicker. And if that's what you're trying to do with your quarterback that's this talented, it's great. All right. We're going to bring in Lindsay Jones to talk about the Broncos pick. Obviously, she's incredibly locked in to everything that's happened there. She's covered that team for a very long time, and it's been one of the moments of the draft. Lindsay, how you doing?
Hey, I am good. It's been kind of wild. I was like begging them to let me in for when the Bears pick was coming, but I'm glad to be here now. I was sitting backstage watching you. I could not tell if you were crying. Nate, can you confirm? Are there tears?
I've tried to keep it together. I've tried to keep it together as much as possible here.
Well, congratulations, Robert.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I'm excited. Look, I mean, I know I'm here to talk about the Broncos pick, but did they get QB too? I mean, did the Bears just get maybe the second best quarterback in this group? I mean, time will tell, right?
I think they might have. And obviously these things are dependent on so many different factors. How much help are you getting? And that's one of the questions that I have is, what's that scheme going to look like? Is he going to unlock that offense in a way we haven't seen other guys do it? Who's going to play receiver on this team if they trade Anthony Miller? They still don't have a right tackle. And that's the problem, not the problem, but that's the consideration when you make a move like this, is that your quarterback needs to cover up so many of those woes. And I think that if he's the building block and he's a guy you can build around, even if the GM changes, even if the coach changes, even if you need to make some tweaks to the roster, having that guy at the center of it still makes everything else okay. Yes. And that's what I'm hoping for.
That's the building block. That's your main building block, and everything else would just branch off from there.
Lindsay, obviously the Broncos didn't take a quarterback.
Yeah.
They took a corner at number 9. Nate and I were discussing this before you came on. I think the position I would have said was the lowest need on probably their entire roster before this got started. How surprised are you that this is the direction they went with that pick?
Well, this is clearly like a Vic Fangio influence, right? I mean, look, if you went back to all the mock drafts from January, February, the first 2 weeks of March, this would have been like a slam dunk pick. Like I bet there's a whole bunch of mock drafts that had Surtain back in March.
Kyle Fuller.
Yeah, exactly. So it's not just Kyle Fuller, it was also Ronald Darby. So they clearly knew it was a position of need, but they invested very heavily there. But this is just very clearly like Vic Fangio looked at the way the board was, and that shows that he's having some influence in a George Payton draft room because, adding Surtain, he's immediately a starting caliber cornerback. It's going to give Fangio a ton of flexibility with his defense. And look, the Broncos had a really good defense for a lot of last year, but cornerback was a major liability. They only got 2 interceptions out of their cornerback position last year. Both of those were from Bryce Callahan. But they just got so little production and consistency out of their starting cornerbacks. So, that position is fixed now. I mean, this defense looks like it's going to be really good. And that's great when you're playing in a division that has Patrick Mahomes and now Justin Herbert.
I was about to
say. That's great. But
you have 4 of those games a year.
Yeah, I mean, so that's really, really important. And, the Broncos defense, the Broncos were further away from the Chiefs last year than they were at any point over the last few years. And this helps them. My question right now is I still don't think offensively they're any closer to keeping up with those teams. So
let's talk about that because obviously the biggest news of the day before the Bears traded for Justin Fields, which is all that matters.
Which is fair.
The biggest news of the day before that happened was everything that we've heard about Aaron Rodgers, and several different reports came out on several different levels. Adam Schefter, did the first one, and then several other people, I think, since then have talked about how unhappy he is, the discord that's happening with him in the front office in Green Bay. And it's been reported, I think, by multiple different people that the Broncos are heavily involved in that. Do you think that is shaping the way that they're approaching this draft, and how real do you think their interest might be? And have you heard anything about just how realistic it might be for Aaron Rodgers to end up in Denver here in short order?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think from a Broncos side, the interest is real. Like, I think they've been exploring a ton of options, and the fact that they traded for Teddy Bridgewater yesterday doesn't take them out of any of these sort of quarterback trade conversations. I think there's, a lot of realistic expectations about what the Broncos quarterback situation looks like. Bridgewater raises their floor a little bit, but their ceiling is still pretty low with Bridgewater and Locke. So if Aaron Rodgers is available, the Broncos have the cap space to fit this in. And there's a lot of things that are attractive about what Denver can offer in terms of future draft capital. They're at one, they're able to take on the salary. And if you're Rodgers, I would look at Denver and say there's a lot of stuff you would like about it, and you would be excited probably about coming here. The big wild card in all of this, right, is if the Packers are just going to dig in and they're not going to field offers, or they're not going to engage in trade talks right now, then that kind of makes it moot, however interested any of these teams are. And so, yeah, I mean, like an hour before the draft, things were going nuts in Denver, and I had just chugged a cold brew. So like I was racing, and I was like, the airport, Centennial Airport is just like a couple miles. I live right off of the same road. And I was like, let's go. Like I was ready to go. And then, my buddy, Mike Kliss, who is very plugged in with the Broncos front office, like threw a whole bunch of cold water all over that, and kind of like settled down and said, okay, I don't need to get in my car right now. But I still think we have to keep that on the table for the Broncos, because look, if you're a Broncos fan right now, and if they come out of this weekend and you're heading into OTAs in a month and your quarterbacks are Bridgewater and Locke, that's somewhat of a downer considering, the options that were there. I mean, they could have taken Justin Fields. A couple hours ago, they thought they could have Aaron Rodgers. I'm very, very
happy that
he's going to look good. He's going to look good in orange. That's all I'm saying.
I am very, very happy that all of the stuff with Aaron Rodgers unfolded over the last 12 or 6 hours or so, because if that in any way chased the Broncos off of Justin Fields, I will be forever indebted to Aaron Rodgers and his entire team for leaking this at the moment that they did. So thank you very much to them.
That's exactly right. It was like, no, as soon as that pick came in with a 9, it was like, okay, they're going quarterback here. They have to. And it's like, okay, but then it was like all these branches of life, just like, choose your adventure book. It was like we just added 500 pages to it. It was like now Justin Fields is a Bear. It's like, holy crap, this is actually happening.
Also, the Bears seem to have done a really good thing at quarterback, and Dave Gettleman traded down. We're turning over new leaves.
Oh my God, I didn't even think about
personal growth on many different levels in the 2021 NFL draft. Lindsay, we will check in with you a little bit later tonight. Really appreciate it. Always good to talk with you. Talk to you soon.
Thanks, guys. See you later.
See you, Lindsay. Well, I mean, I also too.
I still am trying to process everything.
I honestly think I think the Giants were so circled on DeVonta Smith too, and then the Eagles just swooped up and got him. So it's like, I think Gettleman was like, I have to do this trade thing. I actually have to use this phone that I have in my draft room on this day and call somebody to do this. And
I'm trying desperately to be professional. I just want to go. My phone is recording you right now. I can't believe it hasn't melted. I'm assuming there are 10,000 text messages on that phone right now.
I'm just glad we didn't miss the high five.
So let's reset a little bit. Again, it's really hard for me to do this, which is my job. So we're sitting at 13 now. Micah Parsons just went to the Cowboys at number 12.
Yep.
There's a lot of speculation over the course of the last week that the Chargers may need to trade up to go get a starting tackle. Rashawn Slater still on the board.
Yep.
That would be a coup for this team if they see him as a tackle, if they see him as an option at left tackle.
Yep.
When you look at all the other moves they've made this offseason, they've done so much to protect Justin Herbert. This would just be the next step in that. So let's go back a little bit to some of the picks that have just happened. Obviously, all the excitement around the Justin Fields thing kind of chased us off where we were. So the Eagles going up to get DeVonta Smith.
Yep.
We talk about timeline with the Chargers. I think the Eagles timeline is also really interesting because this is a team that traded back out of 6, may have gotten a guy they probably would have wanted at 6 anyway, by the way. I think both of us like DeVonta Smith more than Jaylen Waddle, who the Dolphins got at 6. So it feels like this team understands it's a long-term rebuild, all of that stuff. But I believe that DeVonta Smith can be a building block, no matter what your timeline seems to be. We both loved him. We've talked about this. He will be an outlier if he succeeds. We have not seen many guys at that size dominate in the league, but we haven't seen many guys that size be a Heisman-winning wide receiver.
And put up.
What is your favorite thing about DeVonta Smith, just as a receiver, compared to not only the rest of the guys in this class, but the reason you think he can be good at that size?
Just the unbelievable body control and hand-eye coordination that he always just plays with. It's just that fluid athleticism. And it's so hard to describe him because it's like, he's not twitchy and explosive, but he is.
Smooth, man.
Yeah, it's smooth, and he eats up that grass. And I compared that running style to Randy Moss, but I mean, again, I'm not comparing him to Randy, but it's just how that natural movement, like he catches a bubble, he gets upfield. And also just that, I rarely use the term rare, but he does have rare hands. Like he has that actually sticky hands, like no matter what the contested catch or anything he is.
Do you know what I love about him? Is that he plays so much bigger than he is. And we say that all the time, but he does it in so many different ways. There was a rep against Mizzou that I tweeted out. It was the first game I watched him play, where he buried a guy
on the block, right?
A guy on a block on the sideline. I was like, ooh.
Yeah, I know.
I was like, ooh. Because I come to these guys late. I always do, and I knew who he was.
You're on the head coach schedule, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. I knew who he was, obviously. I mean, I'd watched the big games that they played in. I was just astounded by him over the course of the last college football season. But when you dig in, you learn little tiny quirks of guys that if you haven't watched them in depth. And that play, I was like, oh, man, now I'm excited now. And then you watch some other stuff. One of the things I liked about Mac Jones, who still hasn't been picked yet, is that he's really good at understanding where open space is going to be in coverage structure and everything else. And it not only anticipates who's going to come open, but where he needs to put the ball. But if you're going to play like that, it helps to have guys who attack the ball. And that's the aspect of DeVonta Smith as a receiver that jumped out to me. He attacks the ball. He is going after it in those moments. And if you're going to weigh 170 pounds, you need to play big. But that guy plays so much bigger than he is. One of the other things that you and I talked about today, and I feel like it's a really interesting contrast with Waddle and Smith. When you watch them in stacks and bunches at Alabama,
who is the point man?
DeVonta Smith is the point guy on that. He's the one creating space for Jaylen Waddle, which I think is so telling and so interesting that we have this tiny, skinny little guy that is the one playing with physicality. That's the one you want to be tossing his body around.
To kind of put it in perspective, it's like you have a screener in basketball that's a 6'2" power forward. That's kind of like the equivalent. He's setting the pick and roll at 6'2", like like in basketball terms. Smith is 6 foot, but also just that he's skinny. Yes, we know that, but it's like he's never missed time. He has the hurt finger, which is like whatever. But it's every time he gets hit, he just bounces right up, like nothing phases him, and he just throws the ball, and he always throws the ball perfectly to the ref, which I also is just it's just these little. Like you said, you watch these guys, these things add up, and you're just like, this guy's just a natural athlete. Just one of those guys, he never plays a sport. It's like, oh, go play soccer, and he just kicks the ball, and it's like just perfect. He hits the pipe.
He plays with confidence. He plays with ultra confidence. So let's go all the way back to the beginning here. Obviously, Trevor Lawrence and Zach Wilson go 1-2. We understood that was going to happen. The Niners pick Trey Lance at 3.
Yes.
What do you think ultimately sold Kyle Shanahan on the idea of Trey Lance in that Niners offense?
He's from Minnesota. No, it's I think what he saw him, we mentioned it before, but it was the antithesis of what they had with Jimmy G. I think he was tired of not being able to attack down the field consistently 25 yards or more. We'll see the stats that come up and they say like Jimmy G is, third in efficiency on deep balls. It's like, but then you look at the rate, it's like he only threw 18 of them. Everyone else threw 40. I think Kyle wants to get back to 40. He's like, okay, I'm tired of running basically a glorified triple wing, or single wing offense right now.
It is what it looks like.
Yeah, it kind of is, right? I mean, it really, if you look at the formations too, it's like that's just old school offense, like fuckball basically. And that's kind of what they're going for. But now they got a quarterback that just unlocks some stuff, that creativity. That John Wolford starts for the Rams probably influenced so many other coaches around this league that go, okay, we see McVay with Jared Goff, and now we got a guy that can use his legs, and you can see him getting creative. Yeah. And these coaches like being creative. They get bored. And so also they get bored. They do. It's just, Sean Slater for the Chargers.
It's great.
Yeah, that's great.
Listen,
makes sense.
I don't want to get sucked in again to the Chargers. I already have. It's already too late. I've already gotten sucked into the Chargers again. I love their offseason.
Yep.
I love it. If they needed to remake that offensive line, and they have thrown a no-hitter in remaking that offensive line. I remember I was talking to Scott Pioli about this last fall. I was doing a story about how you build around a young quarterback. When you know you have your guy, what do you do next? And, we talk about tackles all the time and pass protection and everything else. And he mentioned this to me, and then you look back on it, and it really does hold water. Who are the centers for a lot of these quarterbacks that end up becoming very good? You don't need to draft them high necessarily. Nope. You don't need to pay up for them. But I think Alex Mack going to Atlanta, Jeff Saturday being with Peyton Manning, a lot of these, there are so many examples of it. And I think bringing Corey Linsley in to help. Corey Lindsay is a smart person.
Yes.
Corey is a very smart
guy. And it's not
guy.
like he's young, where it's like he's figuring it out with Herbert.
Exactly right.
It's like, no, he's already done it all.
You're going to take some mental stuff off Herbert's plate. Yeah. I think it's a perfect fit.
Game moments, too.
Yes.
And Herbert
has a huge moment.
Herbert had the Rose Bowl, and that's basically it.
Corey is the most even-keeled dude you will ever meet in your entire life. And I think pairing that with Justin Herbert is really nice. So as a young quarterback, even though there's a lot of even keeledness.
Yeah, I was going to say guys, the calmest huddles you'll ever get.
But also Matt PHIWR coming into play guard, who solid player. The type of free agent signing I love. $7.5 million a year. Bring him in to be a stopgap starter. They are very excited about Ode Abushi, who they brought in from Detroit. In their minds, he played the best football of his career last year in Detroit, and they think it's only going up from here, even though believe he's 30 years old.
Yeah.
But they truly believe that he turned a corner last season, and they got him for nothing.
Yeah.
And then now you bring in Rashawn Slater to presumably be your left tackle. Brian Bulaga is at right tackle. This has now gone from a disaster unit to a potential plus offensive line over the course of a month and a half.
And that's what everyone wants improvement. You want, say you have just a poor crap starter, and it's like, we want the star, we want the Pro Bowler. But even going from below average to above average, that's 2 tiers of bumps.
Yes.
But they're going from below average to good. And that's the 5. Yes.
And Bulaga's there's injury issues, and they have depth. And I think that's the problem with this Chargers team.
Look, a guy like PHIWR, they're going from crap to good. Yes. And that's like, that's a 3-tier improvement. And when you do that across the board, offensive line is usually the sum of all their parts. And you just get above average to good across the board. And with versatility that they might have with a guy like Slater, who can maybe bounce around. And that helps with injuries. Who's been bit by the injury bug more than anyone? The Chargers.
Yeah.
At what position? Offensive line. Okay, let's get a guy that, say a guard did go down. All right, we got 2 guys that are also starters. We can swing there. They can find the best sum of their parts. That is just so huge. Offensive line, we'll love guys that are just, a dominant guard. But then if they can't play center, it's like, what's his, like Gabe Jackson. I love Gabe Jackson. Can't play center.
Gabe ain't a center. Gabe is a gap guard. That's what
guard.
Gabe is.
Can't play zone, can't play center. So it's like, it's very limited what his use is and what you can do with that.
Wow. Jets moved up with the Vikings. Interesting. Okay. Let's get back to the Niners here for a second. Obviously, we've talked about this trade for the past month. It has been the story of the pre-draft process. It's a huge haul. I mean, what they traded to move up, I think, even if it shouldn't have informed or tinged my thinking about it, it did. Because when you're trading 2 future first-round picks, this is the same type of haul that the Rams paid in 2016. It's in that range to go from 16 to 1 to go get Jared Goff. If you're going to trade that, it's the same thing we're talking about with Justin Fields and Deshaun Watson and Patrick Mahomes. They're making up for those holes if you trade away future firsts. If you're going to trade 2 future firsts, you need a quarterback who is going to cover that up.
Yeah.
And I think you need someone ultra talented. The Mac Jones, if you had traded 2 future first round picks for Mac Jones, it reminds me of paying $30 million a year to Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins is a totally acceptable quarterback. The play you're going to get from Kirk Cousins, the floor is defined. I like Kirk Cousins. But if the opportunity cost and not being able to spread that money around to help a guy like Kirk Cousins who needs help for them to take you over the top, that's what it reminded me of. It's like, all right, even if we think Mac Jones is going to be pretty good in Kyle Shanahan's offense, what you're giving up to get for him, you can't prop him up.
All those other first rounders would have really been helpful for what Mac Jones needs.
Now, Trey Lance, I think, is talented enough and the ceiling is high enough that it changes the conversation. Because if you look at what the Niners have been over the last few years under Shanahan, Garoppolo 22-8 as a starter. Everyone else 7-27.
Jesus.
It combined as a starter. And Shanahan alluded to that with when he was talking about Jimmy this week, and he's been very honest through this process in a way that he can't really help himself, which I appreciate about Kyle Shanahan. He has said the injuries were the biggest issue. So now it's a question of, all right, if we have a quarterback that can just keep it on the rails, what can we be? And now I think the conversation changes even again. We have a guy that if he stays healthy, we know we're going to have a baseline level play. And now the ceiling doesn't even exist because of what Trey Lance's talent can give you.
That's the thing with size. I think people misconstrue, even myself sometimes, is we think size is play strength. It's durability.
Yeah.
It's holding up over now a 17-game season.
Totally.
And that's some of my concerns with Zach Wilson is that he's a little thin-framed and probably maxed out. Trey Lance just has that natural build where he's just big and he can actually carry the ball. Yeah, you don't want him to run 15 times. You don't want any quarterback to run the ball that much in the NFL. It's just hard. All of a sudden you get whacked in the shoulder a couple of times and you have to throw the ball. That's not fun. But he gives you the option. All of a sudden you get inside that 5-yard line. You know how many touchdowns he's going to rack up? Like just what Kyle Shanahan's going to design down there. Just any movement stuff.
I love the quarterback run game that they can put in.
It's going to be so much
fun.
There
are just so many wrinkles to that offense now. There's so many possible wrinkles.
They could be in the gun with Juszczyk right there and have Juszczyk lead block for Lance, and they're +1 on the run game. It's just going to be like you can run outside zone with him as the quarterback. Basically, you're going old school single wing offense at that. And then also on the next play, he can do a perfect mechanical drop back off a play action game on the boot, a half roll, and launch the ball to guys that are going to be most likely wide open because it's Kyle Shanahan's offense.
And I think that's the interesting part about Lance is that obviously 17 starts, right?
Yeah.
There is a rawness to his game. I think there's some scattershot accuracy where it's like, all right, that's not the best thing in the world, but there are elements to his game that fit right away.
Yeah.
There isn't a lot of projection with him and the play action element of this, like there would be with some of these other guys, which I think
is gone every single snap.
So
yes, exactly.
There's an aspect to his game where it's just like, yeah, you'd hope that there's going to be some growth there, obviously, but at the same time, it's less. It requires less imagination with him in that offense than it would for a lot of the other guys in this draft,
especially because he's under center. It's refreshing sometimes, and actually, it's kind of funny
because Jimmy played it out of the gun so much, and you'd assume it's because that's what Jimmy was comfortable with. If you go back to other years of what Shanahan has done, Matt Ryan's under center to the degree that he didn't even want at the beginning because Matt Ryan liked playing from the gun, and Kyle was like, we're doing play action under center.
That's going to help.
So I think we've talked about this with Shanahan so many times about how the personnel informs the offense. It does. And the Shanahan system has changed.
Yes.
It looks so different from what it looked like with Matt Schaub in 2010 to what it looked like, I guess, in 2009, with what it looked like with Robert Griffin in 2012, to what it looked like with Brian Hoyer in 2014, to what it looked like with Matt Ryan in 2016, to what they have done over the last couple of years. I remember talking to Andrew Hawkins about this, who played for Kyle in Cleveland in 2014. And he loves him because every person you talk to that plays for Kyle and that staff even, because Mike McDaniel was his wide receivers coach in Cleveland, and he rave reviews about Mike McDaniel. And he was saying the number he estimated was 60%. 60% of the offense moves from place to place. The other 40% changes with your personnel. And that's what is so exciting about this. And I think that's why there was so much intrigue about the pick, because we've seen all of this from Kyle Shanahan, because we are in agreement, I think, as a football watching community, that he's very good at this.
Yes.
We wanted to see where he landed. If you look at the numbers, since 2017, Jimmy Garoppolo is second in the NFL in yards per attempt. He is fourth in EPA per pass among quarterbacks. So, and by the way, Nick Mullins is eighth in yards per attempt.
He's going to maximize what he's got.
He's going to maximize whoever it is. And that's why I think it was so tempting to envision this as who is the most talented guy we can drop in here. I, now because I'm emotionally attached to it, would say it's Justin Fields, but you can probably make a case that Trey Lance is in that exact same conversation.
Absolutely. Same kind of cloth of player in the sense that it's I mean, I keep saying like, yeah, big athletic and everything, big arm and all that, but it's just the cerebralness. That's what probably Kyle Shanahan interviewed this guy and goes, yeah, we can run our stuff with him. Like, yeah, I can. He's gonna. Oh, what is this?
I mean, that's clearly not
real.
No,
but the Patriots.
Oh, yeah. We're reacting to Mac Jones on the phone here on the television, but the pick is in for the Jets at 14. So the Jets, obviously, they were in the catbird seat with this draft in some ways because along with having the second pick in the draft, they also had an additional first-round pick from the Jamal Adams trade. If you look at all of the moves the Jets have made this offseason, if you look at all of those, the signings and even bringing in Robert Saleh. So you have Robert Saleh coming in as your head coach. Corey Davis signs as a free agent. They go out and get Carl Lawson, Sheldon Rankins. This team has made a lot of aggressive moves to get better right now. The rebuild for them is over. So you have Zach Wilson as the first step of that. Whoever they traded up for here with Minnesota being the next step of that. You know, it could be an offensive lineman. Obviously, that's a huge area of need for them.
Yeah, they went with Vera Tucker here. So yeah.
Did they? Yep. So that's being confirmed.
So they're going to go him and Becton on the left side, and they're going to be locked in for the next decade.
It's
great.
Love it.
I do too.
I love it.
I'm glad.
Because so they have George Fant at right tackle still. It's not the best option in the world, but it does seem like they were comfortable rolling with him this year. They signed him in free agency last offseason, and now you have just a boulder of a guard.
Yes.
You just drop. I said this the first time I watched him. He is a guy you draft, and they took him at 14, so it's a little bit off. But I said he's a guy you draft from 18 to 25. You put him at guard, and he starts for the next 10 years.
And you're fine.
That's exactly the type of guy that he reminds me of, and I think it makes total sense. So now you look at this offense overall. You have Becton at left tackle. You have Vera Tucker at one of your guards. In other interior spots, still a conversation. Connor McGovern is there. You know, they've spent some money. That may be a work in progress. But the offensive line is better now with him. This is a solidifying factor. You have Corey Davis, Denzel Mims on the outside. You still have Jamison Crowder there. With Keelan Cole, 2-year slot options. Running back,
whatever.
You and I had this discussion today. Do you know who can play running back for the Jets next year? Literally anyone.
You and Jeff Wilson when we were talking about it, but it's like, just pick 2 first names. Just 2 names, 2 nouns.
Just give me some version of Raheem Mostert. I want a guy who returned kicks in college and runs a 4.41. You can take him in the 8th round. I don't give a shit.
It's gonna be fine.
That's totally fine with me. So, but then you have Denzel Mims and those 2 guys on the outside, and a scheme I'm excited to watch. It is a type of offense I like to see, and I want to know what this version of it is going to look like. Kent, do you want to go to break with the Patriots about to pick at 15 here? Okay. So, all right. So, the Patriots pick is in at 15. We just saw Mac Jones on the phone, so we will wait to talk about that here for a second. But again, this was a really pivotal draft for the Jets. It was a potentially foundational draft for the Jets. And coming away from the first 14 picks with Elijah Vera Tucker and a quarterback, not the second best quarterback in the draft, because the second best quarterback in the draft, or potentially the best, is now a Chicago Bear, which I would like to keep reminding everyone of for the next 4 hours here as we're doing this.
I just still give away.
But obviously, a guy they think is their quarterback of the future.
You got to think this is just smart thinking. Like we brought up the running back example, and that was like what fans were clamoring for. We need a running back. We need a running back. And Travis Etienne. It's like, no, you don't need that. And this just shows that the Jets is they're thinking the right way when they're building this team. They went back to last year, even with the doldrums of a team. With Joe Douglas is looking at this right way. Yeah, they went Wilson. Wilson's my number 4 quarterback. I still think he's a legit first rounder, and he's going to bring excitement to the team. And Mike LaFleur is going to do a good job. It's still a Shanahan offense. I mean, it's going to be a version of it, and it's going so at least the bar is going to be lifted. So they're building inside out, but also too is Mims is going to be a great pairing for Zach Wilson. Because he's a ball winner.
Yes.
And what does Zach Wilson like to do?
He underthrows deep balls.
He does. He underthrows deep balls. Oh my God, this is so great. Now Fields is your guy.
Now I'm just going to shit on Zach Wilson for the next however long, because I'm just totally in the bag for Justin Fields. I already was. That's
Mac Jones.
I want this. It's been on the record. I have been a Justin Fields guy from the beginning. This is not revisionist history. That's why it's so exciting. All right. Patriots pick is in. Mac Jones is a New England Patriot. This makes all the sense in the world.
It does. I mean, this was like
what elements of what Mac Jones is as a quarterback do you think fits with what we've seen offensively from New England?
Oh, getting the ball out of time. I mean, that's Tom Brady's greatest asset. That was the coolest thing. I'm sorry, I'm comparing Tom Brady to Mac Jones. I'm not. But
that comparison has been made a lot in the pre-draft process, even if it's a little bit much.
Yes. But the fact that he gets the ball on time, he's so accurate. And that's the thing with Tom Brady is you watch him in the Bruce Arians offense, and it really it shone a light to how good Tom Brady is to me, because all of a sudden I see not that I always knew he was great, but also just seeing him operate this Bruce Arians offense, and that is not, it's quarterback friendly, but it's not quarterback friendly.
The time to throw and average depth of target does not compute.
Exactly.
How quickly he was getting the ball out and how far they were pushing the ball down the field should be impossible.
It's like him and Big Ben were like next to each other in time to throw, and then you look at their ADOT and they're the complete opposite. So like top and the bottom, and so with that, that's what Mac Jones can do. Josh McDaniels is going to love that. They're like, okay, he's going to get the ball on time for us. Like everything's going to be exactly how we coach. He's tough. He can't really create, but he can throw off platform a little bit when he does have to move in the pocket. And guess what? That's what Tom Brady was great at, was moving in the pocket. So they were like, okay, they probably see those same qualities with him. Yeah, we're not saying it's the same tier of player. I mean, but no one's really going to compare to Brady for a long time. But it's just that those attributes is what they're going to like. Hey, we're going to teach him to do X, Y, Z. He's going to do X, Y, Z right on time. Every single time. And that's what Mac Jones is going to bring.
I also think that all of the moves that they made in free agency, this is a team that has a lot of talent right now.
Yeah.
Not a lot of talent, but not a lot
nice
of holes.
Pieces.
Not a lot of holes on offense.
Yeah.
That's what they did in free agency. They built an offense that I think a quarterback could do something with. You have Jonnu Smith. You have Hunter Henry. I mean, we don't love the receivers, but they're starting caliber receivers.
Kendrick Bourne.
You do love Kendrick Bourne. That's right. That's right. So Kendrick Bourne is your guy. So I am curious to see what that will look like. And I want to, because I think both of us, it's a different conversation if you're trading 2 future first-round picks to move up and take Mac Jones at 3 when Trey Lance and Justin Fields are on the board, as taking Mac Jones at 15 without making a trade and having him be the 5th quarterback.
Correct.
So we like Mac Jones. You and I both do.
Yes.
And I think this is the range. This is the type of offense. This is the situation where Mac Jones makes sense in a way that the Niners might not have.
This makes all the sense in the world. This is what we said, early 2nd round grade on him. He's going to inflate half a round. Where'd he go? Pick 15. midway through the 1st round. And it makes all the sense in the world. This is where, like you said, this is the value of Mac Jones. This is where it should have gone. This makes more sense. And now Twitter can kind of calm down and not hate Mac Jones as much and appreciate for what he can do, which is basically a millennial or Zoomer Chad Pennington, basically.
All right. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to chat with Dane Brugler about what he has taken from the first half of the 1st round. Excited to do that. We'll be back here in a bit.
Growing up, cereal was one of the best parts of being a kid, but I had to give it up because I realized it was full of sugar and calories that just weren't worth it as I was getting older. But that's where Magic Spoon comes in. Magic Spoon has 0 grams of sugar, 13 to 14 grams of protein, and only 4 net grams of carbs in each serving. It also has only 140 calories and comes in the flavors you loved when you were a kid. The variety pack has cocoa, fruity, frosted, and peanut butter. So go to magicspoon.com/maze to grab a variety pack and try it today. And be sure to use our promo code MAZE at checkout to save $5 off your first order. Magic Spoon is so confident in their product, it's backed with 100% happiness guarantee. So if you don't like it for any reason, they'll refund your money, no questions asked. Remember, get your next delicious bowl of guilt-free cereal at magicspoon.com/maze and use the promo code MAZE to save $5 off. Thank you to Magic Spoon for sponsoring this episode. On Wednesday night, the night before the draft, I was trying to fall asleep, and I just couldn't. I was sitting there tossing and turning, and it was almost like Christmas Eve for an adult who cares a lot about football. But when it was finally time to settle in and fall asleep, I was so glad that I had my Helix Sleep mattress. Helix Sleep has a quiz that takes just 2 minutes to complete and matches your body type and sleep preferences to the perfect mattress for you. Why would you buy a mattress made for someone else? With Helix, you're getting a mattress that you know will be perfect for the way you sleep. Everyone's unique, and Helix knows that, so they have several mattress models to choose from. Soft, medium, and firm mattresses, mattresses great for cooling you down if you sleep hot, which I do, and even a Helix Sleep Plus mattress for plus-size sleepers. I took the Helix quiz and it matched me with the Midnight Luxe mattress because I wanted something that felt medium and I sleep on my side. My girlfriend and I have very different sleep preferences, but if you take the quiz, you're allowed to do it for 2 different sleepers with unique, specific settings for each one, and you can find a bed that's somewhere in the middle, which was perfect for us. It's been awesome getting unboxing videos from so many of you who also found the Helix mattress of your dreams. So if you're looking for a mattress, you take the quiz, you order the mattress that you're matched to, and the mattress comes right to your door, shipped for free. You don't ever need to go to a mattress store again. Helix is awesome, but you don't need to take my word for it. Helix was awarded the #1 best overall mattress pick of 2020 by GQ and Wired magazine. Just go to helixsleep.com/maze, take the 2-minute sleep quiz, and they'll match you with a customized mattress that will give you the best sleep of your life. They have a 10-year warranty, and you get to try it out for 100 nights risk-free. They'll even pick it up for you if you don't love it, but you will. Helix is offering up to $200 off all mattress orders and 2 free pillows for our listeners at helixsleep.com/maze. That's helixsleep.com/MAYS for up to $200 off and 2 free pillows.
All right, guys, we're back. Excited to welcome in Dane Brugler, the athletics draft expert. Released his first round or his entire mock earlier today, his last one. Dane, how you doing, man? It's been a crazy day. I'm sorry, I'm still a little bit shaken from all of this Justin Fields stuff. I'm trying to keep it together.
How exciting is that for you? That's awesome.
It's crazy.
That is so awesome. We didn't have much drama in the top 10. I mean, I think besides 3, I mean, we knew it was going to be Fields, or we knew it was going to be Lance or Mac Jones at 3. But then the rest of it played out almost exactly how we thought it would. And then we get Fields at 11. And that's just – I love it for Chicago. And how many GMs get a chance to draft 2 first-round quarterbacks?
Not many do. And I really hope that this is a mea culpa and this makes up for all of the just ills that have plagued me over the past 33 years of my life.
Well, just think about how the narrative can change with Ryan Pace drafting quarterbacks in the first round with this pick, if it happens to hit. I mean, it's fascinating. With Trey Lance, when the trade was made 4 weeks ago, at The Athletic, I did an instant mock draft, gut reaction. Who are they taking? And I went Trey Lance. I thought that made the most sense when you look at the 49ers and Kyle Shanahan, the unique package of skills with Lance, with the athleticism, the arm talent, the intelligence for such a young age. Now, he's such an unprecedented prospect with only 17 career starts and at the FCS level and all that, but just such a unique player. And so I love that fit. It's just really fascinating that Kyle Shanahan said all along that it was Trey Lance and, the Mac Jones stuff that just took over, the draft conversation for a month. Really wasn't to be. And then, looking at the other picks of the top 15, 3 receivers, all going back to play with, their former college quarterbacks.
I didn't even think about that.
With
That's
the Eagles
wild.
too. Yeah, I didn't think about that.
I didn't even think about that. So, Dane, you had Waddle at 6 to Miami in your final mock today. What made sense about that fit to you? Why did you prioritize him, or why do you think the Dolphins did over a guy like DeVonta Smith? What clicked with that pairing?
Really, it was just because I knew the Dolphins loved them. They've loved them for a long time, and I think I kind of wish Penei Sewell would have went 5th just to see who they would have gone with at 6, whether it would have been Jamar Chase or Waddle, because I heard all along that Waddle was their top receiver, and so I think they might have gone Waddle over Chase there. But he's just with the athleticism. He's coming into the year, you thought, man, a little bit gadgety with the way he plays. This year, you saw him take a step forward with his routes. You saw a little more nuance into what he was doing. And I think when you project him forward, not only are you reuniting him with Tua and what that's going to mean for the development of your second-year quarterback, but just as the offense as a whole, I think Waddle is really going to help open things up.
I also saw from him, I think, a couple different times this year. There was a catch in the Mizzou game that jumps out to me, but the contested catch stuff and the physicality he plays with, even though he's a little bit undersized. With speed guys every once in a while, I think there are 2 considerations. Do they play with physicality, and what is their change of direction like? Can they throttle down? Are they able to change direction at full speed? And I think those are the boxes that he checks that other receivers that we'd call just speed receivers don't necessarily tech off.
The ability to play through contact is so key with him, and he does it consistently. And I think you're right. He's a 3-level receiver. He can win at all 3 levels and create these big plays. And he did it consistently at Alabama. So as long as the medicals were okay, felt pretty strongly he was going to go high. And then I was interested, cornerbacks. Dallas was really worried coming into today. I'm in Dallas right now. I was at the Star earlier.
How's the mood over there?
A lot of nervous energy because they had a feeling both cornerbacks were going to be off the board. That's exactly what happened, and they were devastated here. So they trade back. They get Micah Parsons, which was their plan C. And, it's an interesting fit there with how, what does that mean for Van Der Esch? They have to pick up his 5th-year option by Monday. What does that mean with that decision? Jalen Smith, what does that mean? We still don't know Dan Quinn exactly what scheme he's going to run here. He has yet to say that. So it's a really interesting fit there. And also interesting that they traded within the division, which, usually you don't do that, but they knew if DeVonta Smith wasn't going to he was going 11 to the Giants. So they felt comfortable making that trade with the Eagles. So they knew he was going to be in the division no matter what.
If you're looking at Parsons' game, obviously we didn't see him doing a lot of dropping at Penn State. He did a ton of blitzing. He's able to add on as a pass rusher. Kind of reminds me of Anthony Barr in that way and the way the Vikings used him early in his career. So with Parsons' skill set, what does that illuminate to you about what the Cowboys might want to be defensively?
Could he be a little bit like a Vic Beasley, you know, in that scheme? Can he be, you know, a guy that on passing downs, you are, you know, using him as a rusher? I mean, you look at it, he's bigger than Azeez Ojulari. You know, like he has defensive end size. He's got huge hands. He has 11-inch hands, huge hands. He can get after the quarterback. As a blitzer, I do think that, you know, whatever you're going to do with him, you're not going to take that out of his game because that's part of what he does best. So I think
whatever back to that Bruce Irvin Leo role that Seattle used to really
like almost that. Yeah, it's like they can bump down, they Sam on base downs, and they get Elson. He puts his hand in the dirt on passing downs, or they walk him off and put him in the flat or anything like that. No, that makes a lot of sense. Like, might as well use it. You got it, and they love that versatility. They love all their front seven guys to be able to pass rush.
So obviously, that was the first linebacker off the board. Zaven Collins went to Arizona. Dane, that's a pairing that had been talked about ad nauseum over the last few days. It was one of the worst kept secrets in the draft. How do you feel like Collins fits with what the Cardinals were defensively last year under Vance Joseph and what they'd want to be this year after adding all the pass rushers they did in the offseason?
Man, Cardinals love their hybrid defenders, don't they?
They really do, man.
They got a type.
It's great. But, I mean, it's interesting that he was up at 270 pounds at his medical weigh-in. And, you know, that kind of tells me that the Cardinals told him, hey, we're going to use you as a front seven defender that's going to get after the quarterback. And, you know, I don't know how much athleticism he's sacrificing at that type of weight, but, you know, they lose Hassan Reddick and all that sack production that he had. I think we're going to see him being an upfield player. And, you know, that when you look at that size and that athleticism, I think it makes sense for how Arizona plans to use him.
It's obviously it's comical how big he looks.
I was watching the Tulsa film today. It's hilarious. I said he looks like a kid in PHIWR that has to wear the stripe on his helmet because he can't run the ball.
He's a double striper.
And you look at it, and he's a really strong blitzer, and that's what they lived in last year. And I'm curious, with adding Watt and getting Chandler Jones back, do they feel like they need to do that as much? Maybe the answer is yes. If they get a guy like Zaven Collins. So Dane, 17. The Raiders just picked Alex Leatherwood. I would say that's one of the more surprising picks of the entire draft so far in terms of value. How surprised are you that Leatherwood went over some of these other tackles and in essentially the middle of the first round?
I was told to put Leatherwood in my first round mock, so I snuck him into the Packers.
Attaboy.
But I didn't think he'd go 20 or top 20. That's surprising. And we know the Raiders have a need at right tackle. And that's the direction they go here. That's a really interesting pick. Leatherwood, I think he's a little stiff in his lower body, but he has length. He can move. He's got light feet. And we've seen him play at a high level the last 3 years. 1 year at guard, 2 years at left tackle. And, you know, we know Mike Mayock loves those high character, big school players. And I think Leatherwood fits that mold. You know, that's a little high, especially over Arizona.
It's all Alabama Clemson guys.
John Gruden watched all those games. No, but it makes sense, you know. And Tom Cable's gonna always like long athletes. Totally. Like that's his type. He's gonna go for it. I mean, we all like long athletes on the offensive line, so that makes a lot of sense. And it's probably because what they did with their offensive line, they kind of retooling it in a weird way, unexpectedly. So they're probably just going, okay, we have Colton Miller on the left side. Let's get another just good piece that we can find somewhere to play.
Dane, we will check back in with you after pick 20 here in a little bit. Really appreciate your time, buddy. I know you got a million things going on, so excited to talk to you a little bit later.
All right, guys. Sounds good.
Thanks, Dane.
Wow. Man.
I know. No, Zaven Collins, no, that makes sense too. And I'm just like having like visions. It's like him and Isaiah Simmons. Like you couldn't get any more different guys.
Linebacker,
yeah, it's just different sizes, but they're both athletes and long and big. And it's like, if they hit on it, I mean, that could be really, really fun. Like, and especially with, like we said, with JJ and everybody else they have up front. I mean, that's a fun front seven that they could be building and like bringing that versatility, even with losing a guy like Reddick or other pieces that they've lost.
So the Alex Leatherwood thing is kind of wild. I mean, you watch him play, and I think that the testing and how athletic he is doesn't always match up with what you see on tape. The length is good. Stiff is a really good way to put it. So, I mean, surprising when you consider that Tevin Jenkins is somebody that we thought might be in play for the Raiders there. We thought might be in play for the Bears, but they just picked the best quarterback that's ever lived. So no longer need an offensive tackle or have the pick to do that. So I want to know
this just brushes over everything, doesn't it? Is that you get your quarterback. Isn't it great? You've lived in a world for the last, your entire life of All the other pieces were there. You're like, oh, defense was always set.
Let's not pretend the quarterback thing is solved yet. I'm very excited about what's happening here.
Potentially.
I have watched this team screw up in more ways than you can ever imagine.
Yeah, very true.
Dane hit on Waddle at 6. I think it makes total sense. If you think about just the explosiveness that they've added to that offense, I actually, in conversation with you at lunch today, said that Waddle and what he could be for an offense reminded me of Will Fuller, where he'd be a speedy 1B. Yep. Now they have Jaylen Waddle and Will Fuller.
Yes.
You pair that with Gesicki and DeVonta Parker, you see it. You see the pieces. You see how it fits together. Also, you want to go 4 wide with that and get 4 guys out in routes. That's where Tua is going to be best.
Correct.
You let him see things. You let him be a point guard, distribute the ball.
Correct.
I think all of that makes sense. Talking about the Bengals at 5, though. Obviously, we talked about what they needed in terms of protecting Joe Burrow. Last year, you look at it, 4.7 hits per game while he was on the field. That's the 3rd highest rate in the NFL. Had a 7.3% sack rate, the 7th highest in the NFL. So protection is a concern. But the Bengals go out. They sign Riley Reiff in free agency. They already have Jonah Williams. They bring back Quentin Spain. Obviously there were some injuries last year along the offensive line. They're some
back guys.
Xavier Su'a-Filo. Maybe they go get interior offensive line in the 2nd round. But if you're looking at tackle, they had immediate answers at tackle. If you think about the way the Bengals play, I think it cuts both ways. They believe it was 25.7% of Joe Burrow snaps last year were empty. 2nd highest rate in the league after Jared Goff. So you're playing empty. You need really good tackles, but you also need guys to catch the ball.
Correct.
You have 5 guys out in routes. And that is still, even if we wanted to have a conversation about rare talents and where you find them and everything else, receiver was a glaring need.
Yes.
And in my opinion, what Cincinnati needed to do with this pick is hit on it. I know that sounds simplistic, but if you look at what their 1st round results have been over the last 5 years, they've been one of the worst drafting teams in the NFL. Cedric Abui in 2015, William Jackson in 2016 is a hit, not on the roster
not with them anymore.
John Ross in 2017, Billy Price in 2018, they just declined his 5th-year option. Jonah Williams in 2019, still a question mark. We did this exercise with Barnwell a few weeks ago, and we looked at the best and worst drafting teams of the last 5 years. When you miss in the top 5, it torpedoes you. Quarterback is the obvious one that's going to set you back. I know it well. But even if it's not a quarterback, if you miss on that pick, it's devastating.
Yes.
It's devastating to the overall draft picture. They just needed somebody who's going to be a piece for them. And even if you and I don't love Jamar Chase compared to what some of the other people in the pre-draft process might have thought, he still is somebody that is going to probably be a quality starter for them. I think the floor for him is relatively high. And if that's the case, if he's going to come in and just be somebody that starts for them for the next 5 years with Joe Burrow, it works, even if I think both you and I might have thought the value isn't necessarily there.
Yeah, but he does bring nice synergy with what they have. I love Tyler Boyd. I love T. Higgins.
You can see it. You can see it.
They all it's the Kyle Shanahan line. He likes his receiver room to look like a basketball starting line.
Totally.
And boom, right there. Okay, they just got their small forward. So it makes a lot of sense. Small forward that plays like a power forward. So we'll see how that goes. But I do like Jamar Chase. I think, and it's almost counterintuitive a little bit, to stop protect or to help out protection is by going empty because you're getting the ball out quick. It's almost like leaning into a punch with a boxer. You have to trust yourself a little bit and you have to have a fast trigger man like, Joe Burrow is. And okay, that's where I'm saying I could see the vision there, the argument there that they're going, okay, we don't need O-line. We have pieces. They're good enough. Joe Burrow
draft the guard in the 2nd round. You have starters. They've spent a ton of money in free agency on defense. That's what they've done. I mean, their defensive depth chart is kind of hilarious.
Yeah. There's Trey Hendrickson in there. And
it's all free agents. Yeah. For the most part, you look at it, DJ Reader, Larry Ogunjobi, Trey Hendrickson, Von Bell, Chidobe Awuzie, Trey Waynes, they're all free agents.
Yeah.
They've rebuilt the entire defense with money because they've drafted so poorly over the last 5 years. They needed to do it. But if you're going to do that on defense, you can use the high-level draft capital to try to build around Joe Burrow. And again, if you look at schematically what they've been, they want to get a ton of guys out in routes because that's where Burrow's best. Now they have 3 legitimate receiving options and Joe Mixon coming back.
Yes.
The talent for the
receiving.
Yes, absolutely.
Makes a ton of sense.
So you would hope that group overall is going to be enough to give Joe Burrow a chance. That's where we're at now. Give the guy a chance. And I think that that's what this collection of receivers and this collection of talent does. And one more point before we get to Lindsay here. I believe they led the league in 11 personnel usage last year.
Yes, they did.
You need a third receiver if you're going to do that.
Yes.
And I still think that you can piece receiving talent together, everything else. But I absolutely can understand an argument in that Bengals draft room. Guy played with Joe Burrow in college. We need an X receiver. We need a number one guy. Let's get that. Pair it with everything else we have. You can see the picture unfolding. I still would have taken Penei Sewell, but I can understand why they did it.
Hey, we didn't help your protection, but at least we got your buddy. Like, you know, it was like, you know, it was one way to like appease them, just maybe not the way we wanted to appease Joe Burrow.
All right, we're gonna bring in Lindsay. Lindsay, a lot is happening. I know we wanted to stay in the AFC West with you. We had a couple tackles taken by teams, you know, that are going to play the Broncos a decent amount here. The Raiders, a surprising pick with Alex Leatherwood at 17. Are you surprised based on where he was mocked pre-draft, everything else, that he was taken that high and they went with him over somebody else at that position?
Well, if you know anything about me, Robert, it's that I love some sexy offensive tackle.
That's right. That's right.
This is my jam. So, so look, yes and no is the answer to that question, right? Like, I think if you just looked at value in the consensus big boards, like our colleague Arif Hassan does, it would be surprising. But it's the Raiders. The Raiders do not give a you-know-what about how the rest of us rank these players and the value that goes at 4. Yeah. Exactly. I mean, this is clearly what we know about John Gruden and Mike Mayock and how their board is very different than our boards. And, you know, I think we have a couple years now of evidence to say that sometimes maybe the rest of us were right, but they operate differently. The Raiders have always operated differently. So if it had been, you know, maybe the Steelers or the Ravens or something who would have made that pick, we would have all been like, what? That, like, were we all wrong? Yeah. But the fact that it's the Raiders is like, well, it's the Raiders. That's how the Raiders are going to operate. So, I mean, it was a position of need, and, you know, maybe they thought there was a big drop off at that position. I do think they probably wanted to trade down there. And maybe that was just the guy they really wanted, and they thought maybe they could trade back and get him at, you know, I don't know, late 20s or something. And that the trade back options just were just not available. Are you, Nate? I see you making faces. Is it the Washington pick here?
No, I'm laughing because it's like I think maybe they didn't want to trade back in the 20s because there's no guys that played in the college football playoff at that area of the draft. So also, I think. But
look, if it wasn't on basic cable, they were not able to scout him. I don't know. Do you guys have other channels in Las Vegas?
Yes.
I'm curious. Do you have like streaming options?
The sports book's got them all.
Yeah, it's the one place where you could watch Southeast Tennessee State play whoever if you wanted to.
How do you think I know about Trey Lance? I was watching North Dakota State, you know?
No. I trust that you know. I'm wondering if Gruden and Mayock are able to get that info. Are they not allowed to go to the sports books?
They're not. So maybe that's it. So, hey, we solved it. We solved the issue of it. No, I was curious too because I thought the Raiders were just going to go defense. Like I just thought that was like automatic. Hey, we need to find the best player available. Yeah, I get there's no corners or anything, but okay, this is now where some of these front 7 guys make sense as far as defensive guys. So that's kind of what surprised me. It's like they created their own problem with the offensive line. Like, hey, let's get rid of
exactly what I've said about it's whack-a-mole.
It's
whack-a-mole. It's you solve one problem, and when you take the financial resources away from the line, you put it into the defense. Now the line is bad.
Yes.
Now you need to figure out a way to fix the line. It seems like every problem they solve, another one is created. And I think that's the concern. Lindsay, anything else here from the last 4 or 5 picks that really has piqued your interest?
Yeah, I mean, the Jalen Phillips pick to Miami, I don't think you guys have gotten to talk about much yet. I wrote a story, I guess it published yesterday, just kind of, you know, the medical stuff. And we talked about this, Robert, when we recorded a couple days ago, that the medical stuff was this big question that people in the league were really, really concerned about, and big questions. And Jalen Phillips is the first big kind of medical concerns guy off of the board. His issues were he medically retired when he was at UCLA. He had a lot of issues his first couple of years. He had ankle stuff. He had a really severe wrist injury, and he had concussion history. He medically retired, spent time making music, went to community college, decided he wanted back in, re-enrolls at the University of Miami, has an awesome season last year. I mean, he just like played his ass off his one season with the Hurricanes. Now he's going to stay in Miami. So he's one of those guys who big medical questions, teams couldn't fully examine him. You know, they couldn't get their independent neurologists on him, their own team orthopedists, but just tremendous physical upside. I mean, if they hit, I mean, if one, he's in it, you know, and he realized he didn't want to quit football, you know, and I think that's pretty clear at this point, right?
I hope he likes Miami because he's staying there.
He's staying in Miami. Like, look, who doesn't like Miami? Like what 24-year-old dude doesn't like living in Miami?
Because Southern California was rough, you know.
So, yeah, he's had it really tough. Like he's not going.
Jaylen Phillips is one of the kind of like the top 50 guys. You know, Spencer Schultz, he's a guy. Raven for Dummies is actually his handle on Twitter. But there's some thresholds, like athletic thresholds, that we've talked about, Robert. But it's, you know, one of them that holds up is 7.2 3-cone or less and 9'9" broad jump. There's other things: 33-inch arms, production, 8 sacks, 22 career TFL. He kind of took these thresholds, and really, of the top guys, Jaylen Phillips was the only one that met all these thresholds that lead to that. You know, there's plenty of guys that miss these and are productive players, but this guy hits all of them that are generally 100%. Markers of that.
If you're looking at the profile, he's the most talented edge in this class. Lindsay, Mac Jones to the Patriots has happened since the last time we chatted.
Yeah.
You know, we think makes all the sense in the world. If you get him at 15, it's a different conversation than what happened with San Francisco at 3. How do you like the fit for Mac Jones going to New England?
I mean, I think, you know, he makes a lot of sense with what we know about a Josh McDaniels offense kind of traditionally. So I think it's, you know, the dot connecting there wasn't too difficult. The Cam Newton, Mac Jones quarterback competition and how you try to evaluate these two guys at the same time running conceivably the same offense in training camp is wild to me. Yeah. I have no idea how that's going to go.
Yeah. The Iron Bowl.
No,
I mean, that's the quarterback. Yeah. They got the Iron Bowl. No, but seriously, you couldn't get any more different, like as far as skill sets for quarterbacks.
So Nate, what do you do? I mean, how do they structure this? What do you do?
It's a lot on the coaches, because not only just putting in install, they're going to put in the install and just go like, hey, these are our plays, and okay, we'll have these special packages. But then as far as like every day when you're scripting plays, that's where the work comes in, because you can't waste reps. You're not going to all of a sudden run these quarterback run plays and then have Mac in there and just go, oh shoot, we just wasted a rep with Mac. You know, so it's a lot on the coaches to digest it themselves, and also so all the players, all the skill guys have to be on the same page, because it might be really, it's more of an emphasis thing. The skill guys will just go, okay, this is my play, this is my assignment, but it's really more just on the play callers and play designers, Josh McDaniels, essentially, to kind of deviate with that, to kind of separate to church and state on these guys. Just go, okay, this guy, we have this little package for Cam, he's gonna run this, he's better at these types of routes, Mac's gonna be better at timing, Cam's going to be better at attacking down the field, those intermediate throws where he, you know, gets his big windup going. So that is what they have to do, but it's a lot of pressure on them to do that. They can do it. I trust Josh McDaniels to handle that, but it's just funny. He's going to probably piece together, you know, some late 2010s, or I'm sorry, early mid 2010s Patriots offense with last year's Patriots offense, and just go, okay, so this is 1A and this is 1B, and then we're going to work with that. But it's like
a living organism. It's really interesting.
It is.
Lindsay,
I have two more really quick things that I want to say. Yeah. So you guys have your sound off, so I know you guys didn't hear this. So when Mac Jones got picked, he like strutted up full Belichick, you know, that Belichick gif of like he had that full energy, got up to Roger Goodell and like whispered like this in his ear. You guys can't see me on the podcast, but he's like put his hands next to his face and he goes, "This is what I wanted. Don't tell anybody." And all of the cameras picked it up. So yeah, I like rewound it. I turned it up. I videoed it. So you know,
Belichick Saban thing. I mean, it's like the connection makes too much sense.
But it was not the Patriots way. So he will never be whispering, letting any secrets out again. And the one other thing before I go, at some point, Nate, since you keep talking about wingspan, I really want to see it. I know we've got the live stream because
we go right here.
Like, it's too big. It's not even fitting in the frame.
There we go.
You're just built like Kyle Pitts.
Yeah, I know.
I listened to your pod a couple weeks ago when you talked about your freakish.
That's why I wear stripes. You know, it's just like, so it accentuates it. So it looks 35 inches here. So
okay, good. Well, I'm glad the live stream viewers have been able to see that, even if it won't carry through onto the pod. But we'll catch up with you guys later. Let's see what other weird stuff's going to happen.
Wonderful. Thanks, Lindsay.
Thanks, Lindsay.
I want to talk about the Jaylen Phillips pick here briefly. Yeah. I mean, obviously, you look at what this draft was and what the last couple of years have been for Miami. Just the picks they've had in the top 50 over the last 2 years. Obviously, last year, you have 2 at 5, Austin Jackson at 18, Noah Igbenogany at 30. Wondering how that's going, by the way, after they signed Justin Coleman in free agency.
Yeah.
Probably not the best.
I think they swung a miss
indication on that. Robert Hunt at 39. All reports saying that Robert Hunt likely going to move to guard now with Eric Flowers being traded.
Makes sense.
So, you know, just pieces.
Premium positions, though.
Yes.
Always.
Yes.
They're best.
Yes.
Even if they miss, they're at least swinging at the right spot.
So, and then obviously in this draft, you have 6. You go get Jaylen Waddle, premium position. At 18, they go with Jalen Phillips.
Yep.
Makes sense if you look at positional need. Obviously, they let go of Shaq Lawson, I believe. Kyle Van Noy is no longer there.
Correct.
So some of the signings that they've made, they've moved on from. That was a hole. My question was, if you look at the history of the Belichick trade, not a lot of value in pass rushers. And they drafted Chandler Jones in the first round. But other than that, not a lot of spending on it in New England. They've wavered from it some in other places. Obviously, Trey Flowers going to the Lions on that type of contract. And the Dolphins spent up on Van Noy and Lawson. So I'm wondering if they're deviating that from a little bit, and they take Jalen Phillips, who fills a need for them, and again, I think is the most talented pass rusher in this class, if you're comfortable with some of the questions.
It's a dearth. Is that the right word? A doldrum, whatever you want to use, a nadir of just edge rushing talent in this draft, especially in the top 50 picks. And so it's you got essentially a top 5 talent if he was healthy and all that. If. And that's the thing is,
so his biggest comparables on mock draftable, Jalen Phillips, Gaines Adams, Jadeveon Clowney, Deion Jordan, Marcus Davenport are like 6 of them. And all guys drafted in like the top 5 to 12.
And the thing, like the difference between Dolphins fans probably hear Deion Jordan, they go,
Deion Jordan is a very talented person.
That's what I was gonna say.
Physically talented person.
The thing is Jalen Phillips can play. He actually is a football player, and that's why he was the #1 recruit in the country. I mean, it's like obviously that's how glaring his talent is. It's just, I think it makes sense to them. They are in a position to take these types of risks. This is why you accumulate picks.
Yes.
It's not to say, oh yeah, we got 100 first rounders, all this. It's to take chances. You know, that's a coin flip with all these picks or less, that you're going to hit on some of these guys. All right. We have nobody else. We have a 2nd round pick, and there's not really anybody edge-wise that we really think are a difference maker at a premium position. All right, let's take a chance on a top 5 pick. We have the risk or risk availability to do so. It makes a lot of sense. And that's the thing is like, yeah, they might have missed on a couple of these guys, but at least they're investing in the right positions. It's almost funny. It's because I would prefer to take Phillips early and then Waddle in the teens.
Yes, you'd flip it. But if that you come away with,
it just makes sense.
You're okay with it.
It makes sense.
Excited to welcome Dane back on here because there's a pick I really want to ask him about. Dane, Jamin Davis, I don't even know how to pronounce it. Jamin Davis from Kentucky, the linebacker. There had been some buzz about him sneaking into the first round. I know Daniel Jeremiah loved him. Going to Washington, where linebacker was in need, if you looked at the depth chart, what do you think about that fit with Jamin Davis going to Washington?
Yeah, we knew it was going to be a linebacker. We just, would it be Owusu Koromoa? Would it be Jamin Davis? And the Darius Leonard comparisons for Jamin Davis fits, a long athlete, a guy that I wasn't wowed by the instincts, but I think his reaction to movement was really, really good. And only a 1-year starter. So you feel like he's going to get better and better in that department just in terms of his keys and reading pre-snap. But I think he's a big athlete who's long and can run. And that's the appeal with him. And it's just Washington, another front 7 defender. It seemed that's all they draft in the first round.
Hey, and especially with Ron Rivera and Jack Del Rio, it's like they both play linebacker, so it makes sense too.
Washington, tons of zone last year, tons. And we talked about this in relation to what the Panthers might do, pivoting, going to J.C. Horn. Maybe we see more man from Washington this year after going to get William Jackson. But when you watch Davis as a zone dropper and just how his eyes are in coverage, everything else, do you think he would fit a zone-heavy defense if Washington continues to go that route this year?
Yeah, that's what he did on film. That's what he did at Kentucky. A lot of zone dropping, a lot of feeling where the passing lanes are going to be, and then meeting the ball before it got there. I think he had 3 picks. 1, he returned 70 yards for a touchdown against Tennessee. I think his ability to find the football, both in the run game and in the pass game, that's what vaulted him up the boards here. I mean, Jamin Davis, I think, had the biggest ascent between, say, November until now. I mean, he was looked at as maybe a top 100 guy, just talking to teams in November around Thanksgiving. And here we are, he's a top 20 pick. And part of that is just the way he finished, the way he got better and better throughout the season. His second half film, you could tell he was getting better and progressing with the way he was seeing the football. And I think that's a great point about just how he fits in that defense. With his ability to be in the right place at the right time, that's especially in his zone drops, I think that's a natural fit.
What about Jalen Phillips going to Miami? Obviously more questions with him than I don't know, a lot of the guys in this draft. I mean, obviously the talent is undeniable, but we talk about the medical, and I think there's some other things that teams were looking into and curious about. How do you think that fit works, and what do you think this says about the due diligence that the Dolphins did about Jaelan Phillips during this process?
We knew that Miami was probably going to go pass rusher. It just, were they comfortable with Jaelan Phillips? And that was really the question with all these teams. What was the comfort level there? You know, he medically retires at one point, and that was just the tip of the iceberg with some of these other injuries that he has. But he starts 10 games this past year for Miami, and he played at a high level. And I tell you, if you squint, I mean, you can see shades of Nick Bosa with the way he plays because he has a plan.
His hands are really nice.
But that's it. He understands what he's doing. He can, you know, there's a rush sequence there. Totally. There's a rush plan, and he can win with power. You see powerful swipes. You see just with the way he can set up his moves, you know, he can play the run. So I think based on talent, based on the tape, you think this is a top 10 to 12 player in the draft. Now there's a little bit of a discount sticker on him because of the medical questions, because some of the off-field stuff. But Miami, in a year that's strange like this, where you have limited interactions with these players, they must have felt pretty good about what type of player they were getting, and obviously in their backyard playing for the Hurricanes. So you know, maybe they had some good intel there in their backyard.
I also think that it kind of speaks to the timeline that this team wants to be on, because if you look at him and you talking about him having a pass rush plan, that sticks out in a good way in most drafts. It is so apparent in this draft because it's such a contrast to the other guys at that position. Yeah. So if you're Miami and you're thinking, we want to win, like we've been doing this rebuild thing, we want to win. Yep. He seems like the guy that potentially could give you the most early among this entire pass rushing group.
Yeah, I think he's the most NFL ready of these pass rushers, and he's a guy that you're going to plug in from day one and look to get production out of him. You know, I think when you look at it, you know, CHIQB, Azeez Ojulari, none of these, I mean, all these pass rushers have questions. And if Jaelan Phillips, if the main questions are medical and off the field, and if you're comfortable with those, then I can understand. I know, you know, the Vikings were considering him at 14. You know, the Dolphins, they were looking at running back or defensive end here. They felt comfortable with Phillips, and so I can understand why they went that direction.
So 21, speaking of pass rushers here, Colts go with CHIQB, a guy who my understanding is character-wise very high character marks and is all traits all the time. Sounds like a Chris Ballard pick to me, right? Dane Brugler.
Yeah. And he played in the Big Ten, like all these things.
Yeah, it checks a lot of boxes, that's for sure. A player who I don't know. When you watch him play, I felt like they just did him a disservice with the way they lined him up, because he's lining up head up over the tackle. Yeah, they just didn't let him pin his ears back and go a lot. And for a guy with how twitchy he is, a little surprising. So I feel like, you know, he had the production is not going to blow you away, but I think there's more to him than just, you know, what the stat line says. I think he plays the run really well. You know, he's a guy you're not going to take off the field. He's a 3-down player. And, you know, we know this team needs left tackle. They need a pass rusher. And I felt like, you know, this is probably too early for a left tackle for the Colts. But with CHIQB still on the board, I thought CHIQB could go as high as, you know, 11. We thought maybe the Giants, maybe the Vikings, maybe the Dolphins. And so I think the Colts are pretty happy to see him here.
It makes sense. It's such a great point about him pinning his ears back, because that Don Brown defense is so attacking and moving and slanting and all that. So it's like you don't see the traditional just pass rush. Yeah. I mean, you do, but you don't. And so that's such a great point to bring up, because like we even took a glance at him right before we started the show, and it's like you just see it's like you only get a handful of those true pass rush snaps, even though there is more movement in the NFL. This is an extreme amount of level. I mean, we're even watching the clips right now, and you can just see the pressures coming and all that types of things. But it's great to have.
I mean, when you look at the types of pass rushers that Chris Ballard has chased over the last couple of years, Bonagu, it hasn't worked out all the time, but it's traits. Yeah, and that's what he's after. And I believe CHIQB was at the top of Bruce Feldman's freak list for a couple of years, right? I mean, this is something that if you're betting on traits, this is the type of guy that you'd want to bet on. Dane, is there anybody that's still on the board that is surprising you? Anybody that you just feel like, man, I just didn't think he'd last this long?
Christian Darrisaw, maybe.
Gotcha. Yep.
You know, kind of resetting the board. I'm a little surprised we saw Kadarius Toney go above Elijah Moore.
Yeah.
That's a little surprising. You know, the Giants missed out on DeVonta Smith at 11, so they trade back and take, I guess, the next best receiver on their board, which is Kadarius Toney. So that's interesting. let's look at the board. Greg Newsome, a little surprised he's still around. I don't think he's gonna have to wait very long to see his name come off the board here. But we've got a couple interesting picks here with Tennessee at 22. Good, we could see them go corner. 23 with the Vikings, right? Because they traded back, and then 24 the Steelers. So is Steelers going to go Najee Harris here?
I would think that is a miscalculation in my opinion. When you consider some of the other holes they have, what their running game looked like schematically last year, some of the offensive line questions. I said this. I think that drafting a running back to fix the woes for the Steelers on the ground is putting the cart before the horse.
Yeah.
I think that's
going from James Conner to James Conner too.
Historically bad run game, and it wasn't all just about the running back.
Correct. So, if you look at it, it was one of those things where I think it's so interesting when you watch a team where you can see the run as a priority in the way they teach, in the mindset, everything else. When you watch that Steelers team last year, it's not there. It's just not there. Even some of the guys on the roster were the same as they were even a couple of years ago with Munchak, but you can just tell that is a finesse offense in the way they teach it, in the way they present it, in the way they prioritize it. And Najee Harris is not going to solve that problem, Dane.
Correct.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think this is where we're in Landon Dickerson territory. We know the Steelers need to get better at center. Dickerson could do that. Another guy, just like Jalen Phillips, where the medicals are going to play a heavy part in this. Caleb Farley, same type of deal. Talent-wise, he should be off the board already. But when you factor in the medicals, where's Caleb Farley going to fall? So this is the point of the draft where we're going to get some surprising picks. And I don't think the top 10, there wasn't much that was very surprising. A few surprises so far, but I think we're going to get a few more surprises that maybe we didn't see coming here in the final few picks of the first round.
Awesome. Dane, we'll check back in with you a little bit, but really appreciate it.
All right, sounds good.
Thanks, Dane. No, that's such a great point, even with the Steelers. It's not – we want the idealized version of that offense is the Le'Veon Bell, the killer bees, Big Ben, Le'Veon Bell, Antonio Brown on the outside. It is just straight up RPOs now. I know they're changing. Matt Canada is now the offensive play caller and everything, but it was just straight RPOs. And then Big Ben wanted to be this, Magic Johnson, point guard back there. And it's like, yeah, that's fine, but they needed explosive plays. You were getting them from Chase Claypool, and that was about it. And that stuff was heavily designed. It wasn't in the flow of the offense, which is always my big point, is that when you have to really eke out all those explosive plays, that's tough. If you go with a guy like Najee Harris, it's a good football player, but he doesn't create those explosives, and that's what they need.
I just think you're looking in the wrong other ways. You're looking in the wrong places. I agree. And I agree. I talked to David Bakhtiari about this once. It was in year one under LaFleur, and we were just talking about that idea of how you teach and how the offense is presented to you. And we were talking about this under McCarthy when they were running the ball 30% of the time.
Yeah,
it's hard to be good at running the ball when you don't do it ever, and it's clear to you from the first day of training camp that they don't give a shit about it. When it's not a priority, it reminds me of D'Antoni not coaching defense. Like, that's the comparison that I would make.
Yeah.
It's hard to care about it if the guys tasked with presenting the ideas to you don't care about it.
Yep.
And I think that when you look at a team like Pittsburgh, even a team like Buffalo, I think is somewhat to that. Buffalo's running game last year was not very good.
No.
I don't think it's because their running backs weren't good.
No.
I think it's because
they're in 10 personnel.
They're in 10 personnel, and that's not what they prioritize.
Correct.
The offense is clearly not built around that. And Matt Fairburn, who covers the Bills for us, we were talking about this. I think Dable would even concede that to you.
Oh, yeah.
That they looked at the first down as a passing down for us.
Yes.
So if that's not what you're going to stack up in terms of how you teach and how you build your priorities on offense, it's hard to be a good running game. One running back is not going to fix that.
They had a playoff game or a late season game. I'm blanking on which one, but they threw the ball like 25 straight times.
It was the Ravens game.
Yeah, the Ravens game in the playoffs, and it was shit weather. I mean, obviously, Bills weather and everything, and it's just one of those things where it's like they're fine doing that. They
Empty 10 personnel is their running game.
Yeah,
and that's,
exactly. It's Josh Allen go do something. That's their run game.
And if you want to have a better running game, you probably should. You probably should prioritize a little bit more. I think Devin Singletary and Zach Moss, with some reshuffling of how you build and teach,
yes,
you could probably accomplish that.
Absolutely.
So I want to talk about Kadarius Toney here for a second. I cannot believe that the Giants picked a receiver. I know that they like DeVonta Smith or whatever else it is. If you look at some of the numbers from last year about Daniel Jones, okay, pressure numbers in 2020. 30.3% pressure rate among qualified quarterbacks. Number one in the NFL. Number one. It's not even like
number one.
Yes. it's not as though, oh, you know, they don't protect him enough and everything else. Almost a third of the time, according to Pro Football Reference. 45 sacks last year, which is 4th in the league. I know this is among quarterbacks with at least 350 attempts, by the way. I know that sacks are a quarterback stat to a certain degree. But if you have a quarterback that's going to hold on to the ball, and you know that, I think that drafting another shifty, after the catch, undersized receiver to go with it. Do they really need another guy here to catch the ball for them after the way they've spent their money and the way that they have allocated these resources?
And who they have at receiver too is just like, I know. Well, I get it. You know, Ross is a speed guy and everything, but then so Tony too is my issue with him is he takes forever on his routes because he ad-libs his routes. He in his head, he is an athlete. He is a football player. So he's like, I got to get open. So I got to do it by any means necessary. I'm gonna break off this linebacker I'm one-on-one on. But really, it's like, no, you have to get to the spot right now. But the thing is, that's playing with fire. You have a guy that takes too long in his routes and a guy that is willing to hold on to the ball. That might be some hard hits coming. But, you know, Tony is an exciting player, and I get that. And there is some synergy with Galladay and Slayton, but not as much as I would prefer, really. I don't know. I thought Tony's fit would be with somebody else. You know, if somebody were to take a chance on them,
it's surprising. It's surprising.
Very surprising.
I just think that if you're the Giants, I think your obligation in this moment is to get everything you can out of Daniel Jones.
Yeah.
I don't think a player like Kadarius Toney is serves that.
Yeah.
I don't think it serves that pursuit.
He's a cherry on top.
Yes. And I still think if you look at the offensive line, and you know, who knows, and they drafted Matt Pert in the 3rd round last year. What's going to happen with Nate Solder? I think there's still so many questions there, and maybe they didn't have anyone they liked along the offensive line there, but receiver I don't think I would make that one of the biggest priorities with this team right now.
It's so funny. My friend who's a Giants fan sent me a tweet because I had to do a mock draft for Bleacher Report. And I had the Giants pick, and I think I had him go corner, and you know, I got razzed by Giants fans. They're like, we're not going corner. We decided Dory Jackson. I'm like, no, you still need a corner. But
it's always good when you can spend $13 million on a cornerback and still need one.
Yeah. But so my Giants buddy, you know, he sends me a tweet, and it was basically someone breaking down the hints that Gettleman drops in his end of year meetings, and it's hilarious. And what that tweet said was, oh, you know, we're really going to look to upgrade the playmaker positions. And it was just like, well, you got Saquon Barkley. And okay, so that means they're drafting a receiver. And sure enough, here we are 2 months later after I got that tweet, which was like 2 months ago. There it is. They drafted a receiver. DeVonta Smith, I was willing to be like, okay, I'm fine with that. I get it. They got the Eagles swooped up right in front of them. Get that. Still just weird. I just think the Tony match there is just not preferred. Especially, I actually feel bad for Tony because I thought he would, if he went with an offense that already had other weapons where he doesn't, and this does have other weapons where they got a quarterback that can get the ball in his hands consistently and a system that's very sound and something that you're like, oh, that's a good offense. Now it's scary, like the Saints or something like that. That made a lot of sense. But yeah, this is just kind of, it's hodgepodge and it just feels weird. It's like you're just drafting fantasy players, it felt like.
So Caleb Farley just goes off the board at 22 to Tennessee.
Talented player.
Makes sense to me.
It does.
Because obviously glaring need at corner. This is a team that I want to say was #1 in the NFL in cap spending on the secondary last season.
Yep.
And had one of the worst defenses in the NFL. So obviously there's some shuffling.
Yep.
They kind of tweak everything and almost flip it. They spend some money in the front seven. Danico Autry, you go get Bud Dupree, try to beef up the pass rush a little bit. Still Jeffrey Simmons in there. Now holes on the back end. Farley fits a need for them and also fits a timeline.
Yes.
I think he was, if you're worried about the back and you're worried about how long he's going to be able to stay healthy and everything else, Tennessee, look at what they've done with Tannehill. Look at what they've done with everything else.
Yep.
The window is now, baby.
Yep.
You need to fix that defense right now if you want to continue to compete. And if Farley can be a plus corner for you for the next couple of years, that is what they need.
And they showed a willingness to take maybe a supremely talented player that has injury issues. They took Jeffrey Simmons.
Yeah.
And which has worked out. Trust me, that guy is about to take a whole nother leap, I think, this next year. But they're willing to do it. That's where they're trying to find value in these 20s picks, because it's either you see something someone else doesn't, you find a guy that, you know, because this is what becomes the eye of the beholder range. Usually there's 10 to 15 true blue chip guys in a draft. And then once you get into the late lottery, then it's like, okay, this is where scouting comes in. This is where fit comes in. This is where we have to be on the same page. We have to have a plan. We have to see something someone else doesn't see. And this is where you take the risk on maybe a character guy or a medical guy. And this looks like, you know, they're hoping to get a legit elite corner, but getting them in the 20s. And that I get it. It's worth the risk, especially where they are now, because they're, like you said, they're pretty much in a win now mode, and especially with their offenses. Derrick Henry can't keep pounding the rock for years and years to come. Like that, it's going to happen. He's going to hit a wall at some point, as much as I love Derrick Henry. And Ryan Tannehill is older, but it's like, okay, they're going for a top 5 talent, and they're trying to get him in the 20s. It makes sense.
You watch Farley, he is that talent.
Oh, he's so good.
It is. There are no questions about him in my mind from a ability standpoint.
Yes.
I mean, I think that when you watch him in press, we're getting a little bit granular. When you watch him in press, he doesn't use his hands very much. I'm wondering if that's a coaching point,
might be, yeah.
Things like that. But it's also, if you can mirror a guy without touching him and still be in his hip pocket, that's more impressive to me than mugging guys at the college level like J.C. Horn does.
Yes, and they're basically just dominating, like there are 2 weight classes above them.
Exactly.
Like big brothering them. Yeah, and that's actually some of the concerns I have with Jamar Chase going on the other side of the ball.
Absolutely.
He's able to dominate college cornerbacks, and we get it. Everyone goes, oh, he's playing SEC corner. I'm sorry, I'm like slandering Jamar Chase here, but it's he's going against NFL corners every week. It's like, no. Those are still college corners. Yes. They're NFL corners when they become NFL corners.
Throwing Patrick Surtain around.
No.
By the way,
it was just he was winning at the line.
He did some stuff to Trayvon Diggs, who is not built on physicality.
Correct.
So I mean, we could talk about this.
I know.
Trayvon Diggs did not dominate pro competition in the moment he walked into the league last year. So I understand that Alabama game from 2019 is very impressive, but I think there are still legitimate concerns. I'm so glad you managed to shoehorn a Jamar Chase isn't going to be able to play bully ball criticism here into a conversation that had absolutely nothing to do
the Tony
with Jamar Chase.
The Tony talk got me going. I was like, yeah, let's thrive on this negativity. No, and that's what it's just. We just have to always remember with that is that it's college, and some of these guys, you want to see them dominate. Trust me, we want to see them dominate. It's just like, can they get away with that at the next level, or they have the athleticism or skill set where you're like, well, they're going to add nuance, and then they have a change up, because sometimes these guys, it's like drafting a 6-foot power pitcher with a 101 mile an hour fastball. It's like, okay, now we got to work on a changeup with him. Because he might get hurt, that might not hold up. Yep, exactly. And it's like, okay, we can get Tim Lincecum. Are we going to get like awesome years, and then he's going to get figured out? He's going to get hurt. That's the concern that you have with those types of guys that maybe only thrive in like a bullying way or just dominating that set on the outside. If those offensive linemen we're talking about, we'd be like, yeah, that's awesome. Like, keep bullying them. But when you get on the outside into more the quote unquote skill positions, that's kind of can be concerning.
So pick 23, the Vikings get Christian Darrisaw.
Makes sense.
From Virginia Tech. Based on pre-draft evaluations are always I always have to remind myself, it's like, well, that's great value. It's like, calm down. According to who is great value. But this is a guy that people thought might be a target for a team like the Chargers at 13, and the Vikings were at 14. Now to trade back and potentially get a guy you could have there, that's what you like. When I watched Darrisaw, I saw an easy mover, a guy that, in my opinion, talented, really, really good zone blocking. On the backside of zone concepts, I loved what I saw from him. Body control, leverage, ability to just cut guys off. Guess where he's going?
Kubiak. There we go. So that means Birds of Cleveland and all that. It's like now that becomes like a whole thing too, right? On the left side, because they're probably going to keep him Darrisaw on the left side. Like, how's that?
It's what we talk about with offensive lines all the time.
Some other parts,
you move it down a notch. If you improve one spot, and then it can be a force multiplier where you get better in other spots.
Your second best lineman becomes it's like a starting pitchers. It's like also my second best starter becomes my third best starter. Yeah, that's winning football right there. And that's the piece. When a lot of these guys are the right tackle, you're like, oh, he's a good right tackle, but he's our second best lineman. Oof, we're not in a good way. But if all of a sudden that right tackle is our fourth best lineman, it's like, yeah, we're sitting pretty. That's what they're doing. You're investing in a position, another premium position. But like you said, I don't know what the trade was, but the fact that they traded back probably got some more draft capital. They could do other things.
Rick Spielman loves him a trade back.
Oh,
baby.
Boy.
Loves him a trade back.
Oh, my God.
But it fits a need. It absolutely does. And if you look at it now, you have Darrisaw at one tackle, theoretically. You have Brian O'Neill at another. You have Cleveland on the inside. See what happens with Garrett Bradbury now in year 3. You can see it coming together. It
makes sense.
It makes sense. Yes. It is a similar conversation that we've had for a long, long time about the Vikings. What is the ceiling? Where does this group go? Where can this group go? But if you think about it purely from a personnel perspective, it does track.
Yes.
The one thing that A lot of people had mocked pass rusher to the Vikings in the first round. I think that makes sense. If you look at it, I thought this number was really interesting. If you look at the sack totals under Mike Zimmer during his tenure in Minnesota, it's been top 10 forever. You know, they were 10th, they were 9th and 14, 8th and 15, 5th and 16. They dropped to 17th and 17, but then 3rd and 5th and 18th and 19th. Last year, 28th.
Yeah.
The thing, though, you get Danielle Hunter back.
Yes.
That's
the big piece.
How much faith do you have in the players already on the roster to solve that problem? Is pass rusher a priority to them in the same way it might be on the outside looking in? Clearly, they thought offensive tackle was a bigger need for them right now. That's the direction that they went.
And also they, just knowing how this kind of draft breaks down and everything, they might be able to find that interior line because they have to add to the front seven. We said, what is their biggest question mark going into this offseason? It's like, how are they going to shore up the front seven? Probably get that in the second round. It makes sense. We'll talk about this in a sec. But of course. Oh my God. It's just like, it writes itself. But anyways, I could see it as far as a value perspective. Rick Spielman is very, I do think, intelligent in that way. He understands, okay, where guys are going to get slotted. He always talks about, well, we know what this is going to, we know that was a position that had more talent. A lot of guys say that. I actually think he does know that. Yeah. Like, he's one of the guys that actually understands that. So it does make sense. And yeah, I mean, having Danielle Hunter's back, Mike Zimmer is always going to scheme up the crap out of blitz packages, especially on third down. So they just,
I think Dalvin Tomlinson, Michael Pierce, Danielle Hunter, like, and Stephen Weatherly is back there now.
That's right.
They can make that work. And so it makes sense to me. All right. The Steelers just picked Najee Harris at 24. We had talked about it with Dane. We had discussed this. I want Kent to pull up some of the Steelers rushing stats here from 2020 because I think it speaks to where these problems might exist. We've discussed some of the mentality issues, everything else. I think to me, the fascinating experiment is going to be this. Okay. Alejandro Villanueva, right?
Yep.
Left tackle for the Steelers.
Yep. Stolen Street.
Looks no.
Oh, no, that's Ravens. That's right. That's right.
So this to me is a perfect experiment. He was not good last year in the run game. He was actively bad. When you watch that run game, it was ugly. It was disgusting to watch the running game last year.
It was bad.
The Ravens, who are run first more than any team in the NFL, are comfortable having Andre Villanueva be a plug-and-play starter for them and trading Orlando Brown, even though he was a garbage run blocker last year for Pittsburgh. What does that tell you?
I think they're valuing something different. That they're seeing something different with how he plays and what they put around it, and also
what they're going to ask of him.
And I was going to say also the backs that they have is they didn't invest any first-round backs. It's like it's kind of one of those things.
The order of operations here is a little off. So if you look at the Steelers rushing stats last year, 1.9 yards before contact per attempt. Guess where that ranked in the NFL?
It's got to be first.
31st.
Yeah. It's got to be 31st. Way back there.
So I'm very glad that they picked Najee. And I am not
six Bama guys.
I am not one of those running back in the first round is a joke things. Yeah. I wouldn't do it. I want to make that clear. I would not, I want to say never. I would not draft a running back in the first round. I do not think it is a prudent allocation of resources in 2021. But if you are a team, I know it wasn't the first round, but if you were the Colts with Jonathan Taylor last year, you think we have a great line. This guy can be a home run hitter. We can crush people with this guy. I could see how you get to that place, even if I probably wouldn't draft a running back that high. Same deal with the Ravens last year and J.K. Dobbins. I can get it. Steelers are not that. They are not set up to have somebody succeed. They are not a running back away from having this monstrous run game where if you can envision that guy in this situation, we're ripping off 6 yards a carry. We already saw with Taylor last year. That is not this. It is the exact opposite of the order you should be thinking about.
It seems they talk themselves into it. And they watch that run game. They go, well, our linemen are studs. Well, Big Ben's operating. Why can't we're only averaging 3 yards a carry? Okay, well, our backs got to get better. But what's so funny is they just got another type of back that they already have, just a better version of it. Don't get me wrong. But the Benny Snells and the James Connors, it's just they need speed, and it's just like it's an old roster. It's a weird roster. It's hodgepodge. Like it's just
that
weird.
Team needs an injection of something.
Yes,
Najee Harris, in my opinion, is not that injection.
I
want to be clear about this. Under Matt Canada, maybe the running game is better next year if it's taught differently. If I think there is a chance the running game would be better independent of Najee Harris. Yeah, that's why I just don't think it's just this is what they should be doing. I think that Kevin Colbert deserves the benefit of the doubt. Yes. They've done such a good job of building that team through the draft over the last 15 years since he's been there. I just think this is misguided.
Yeah.
All right.
I agree.
On that note, we're going to take a short break. We'll be back shortly.
This episode is brought to you by Artifact. Mother's Day is coming up, so I want to tell you about an unconventional gift that mom is going to treasure. Artifact exists to help you capture the stuff that matters to you and the people you love. Sort of like an on-demand podcast studio that you can focus on whatever you want. An Artifact lasts forever, but it only takes 30 minutes to make. All you do is book a time with one of their hosts for a half-hour conversation over the phone. You and your siblings could talk about your mom's offbeat sense of humor, share some of your favorite memories, or if you don't want her to know you're shopping, at the last minute you could set her up to talk about her life before you were born. Both are great ways to show her how much she means to you. And if you're thinking about your spouse, Artifact can talk with you and your kids about the things, big and small, that make her special. Either way, it's a very thoughtful, very personal gift that she's going to love. I set up my Artifact with their team. It took 30 minutes. They asked really thoughtful questions. It's a simple process, and the final product that you get out of it is a really special gift. And it couldn't be easier to get started. Step 1, you go to heyartifact.com/mom and choose the type of interview you'd like to do. They've got a bunch of options, or you can create your own. Step 2, Artifact makes it super easy to book your interview on their website. Step 3, the interview lasts about half an hour, and you do it over the phone. Bottom line, Artifact is your shortcut to giving a gift that she'll keep coming back to year after year. And if you use my code MAZE, you'll save $40 off your first purchase. Go ahead and make your mom proud with a gift she'll never forget. Get started at heyartifact.com/mom.
Hey everyone, this is Mike Sando from the Football GM Podcast, another show right here on the Athletic Podcast Network. What are the biggest concerns with the 49ers trading up? How does the general manager view the current state of quarterbacks around the league? Former Exec of the Year Randy Mueller joins me as we discuss the best insider chatter throughout the NFL, during the NFL season, and beyond. Make sure to tune in for our draft recap episode this coming week as we look back on all the insanity that was the 2021 NFL Draft. That's the Football GM Podcast. Subscribe on Apple, Spotify, and more. Hope to see you there.
Squeaky doors, clogged sinks, finicky appliances. When things break around the house, you take care of it. But when something's off in the bedroom, you just try not to think about it. Come on, what are you really waiting for? Take care of it. Go to GetRoman.com/maze now. With Roman, you can get a free online evaluation and ongoing care for ED, all from the comfort and privacy of your home. A U.S. licensed healthcare professional will work with you to find the best treatment plan. If medication is appropriate, it ships to you free with 2-day shipping. The whole process is straightforward and discreet. Getting started is simple. Just go to GetRoman.com/maze and complete an online visit. Take care of your ED without ever leaving your home. Complete an online visit today to connect with a healthcare professional and take care of it. Go to GetRoman.com/maze now. You'll get $15 off your first month. It's really time to take care of your ED. And remember, get started today and you'll save $15 off your first order of ED treatment. Small businesses are grappling with the impact of these uncertain times and looking for resources. That's why, for the second year in a row, Dell Technologies is assembling an all-star lineup of podcasters to create the first ever virtual conference to share advice and inspiration for small businesses of all kinds. Dell Technologies is here to help safeguard your business with modern devices and Windows 10 Pro to provide relevant content for your business success. Search Dell Technologies Small Business Podference on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or Audacity.com starting May 10th.
All right, we are back, and where I want to start here is I just want to remind you that the Bears drafted Justin Fields.
Just one, like 10 seconds ago, Robert sat back down.
I'm into it. I mean, enjoying what's happening. Great. And then every 20 or so minutes, I remember and have to remind myself again as Roger Goodell sits in a big chair, which that's.
Are there M&Ms on the side too? There,
it's great.
I just noticed that.
Every 20 minutes or so, I remember that the Bears drafted Justin Fields. It still doesn't seem real
because this is where your pick was about to be.
Sit in it yet.
Yeah.
To bring me back to earth a little bit here and provide some actual analysis, we're going to bring in Lindsay Jones. Lindsay, the Jaguars just drafted Travis Etienne with the 25th pick. Urban Meyer is a very predictable man. This is a speed-obsessed person, and now there is a lot more speed on this Jags offense.
Wait, first, can we acknowledge what I just put on for you, Robert?
I can't.
Can you see me? Yo, you guys can't see me.
You're just a big circle of light right now.
Dang it. Oh, sorry. Well, I was waiting to get a reaction from you. I just put on my Bears winter beanie that's been sitting in a corner of my office.
Now okay, so we've talked about if you want to have Lena be a Bears fan in the past before. Now it's acceptable.
I'll pass this on to her.
Now it is totally acceptable. Her and I are in this together. So I'm very, very excited about that. Lindsay, we wanted to chat about some of the winners and losers from the draft so far. In your mind, who would you just describe or pin as the biggest winner of the draft to this point?
Well, I mean, I think it's the Bears right now.
Well, it's me, but except me. Who would you say is the biggest?
I mean, did you see there was a video, I think it was from NBC Sports Chicago, of that pick getting announced during the White Sox game.
Oh, fun. That's fun.
Your people, I mean, I don't know if White Sox fans are your people, but I'll just say Chicagoans.
We're all Chicagoans.
They are pumped and congratulate. I was kind of texting with some friends who live in Chicago, like asking if there's fireworks, like what's going on. So
we're in Chicago right now. I am so excited to see what the city is like after I leave this.
You're going to take your shirt off and like run down Michigan Avenue, right? I mean,
that's fun.
Don't end up in jail or anything tonight.
We'll be okay. We'll be okay.
Light some couches on fire or something. So I think the Bears are a big winner because, look, usually if you trade up for another position, don't love it. Trade up for a quarterback, didn't have to move into the top 10. I think that makes a ton of sense. So
and we've seen the price now. It was not I had to trigger out a little bit afterward. They 2022 first, obviously. Yeah. But I want to say other than that, it was something in the 160s this year, and then a 4th round pick in 2022.
Yeah. It wasn't
that is acceptable.
That's not bad at all, especially what like Stafford went for and everything.
Yes.
Like I mean,
yes.
God, it just feels weird to say that like Ryan Pace is a winner, though.
I understand that, and I think that his process has been bad a lot, and that is what concerns me overall in the ways they've done this. And they've lost staring contests so many different times, not even just related to the quarterback position, all the trade-ups that they've made at other positions. It's not the right way to go about this too often. But we've seen other GMs, and it's funny how fast I'm talking myself into this.
Isn't it?
We've seen other GMs change the narrative about them. The guy that was building that team in Tampa was an actively bad general manager for several years, and it all turned around. I'm not saying that's what this is, but I am saying that it changes pretty quickly or can change pretty quickly.
Robert just talked himself into a Super Bowl.
Oh, I'm ready now. Yeah. Now, outside of me and Ryan Pace in the city of Chicago, any other winners in your mind? I
like what the Chargers did. I like that they had a very clear position of need, and they got great value. With Slater there, they didn't have to go in the top 10. I think we were all kind of watching to see if they might trade with the Lions to get up there. They didn't have to do that. And so I think that's fantastic. I don't want you trading up for a non-quarterback basically ever. So I really, really like what the Chargers did. University of Alabama, huge winner. They're one player away from setting the record for the number of players in the first round, which goes back to what we were talking about before, Nate, right? That like, a lot of these teams maybe were only watching a couple of teams.
Yeah. When you're on the national spotlight every week, it's pretty easy.
But I think these are all really good players. I mean, you guys were just talking about Najee Harris before. You know, I'm kind of with you where I'm like, I don't know if I love it, but like it made a lot of sense. And it's a very Steelers pick. I am dying to see the Browns pick is about to come in. Andrew Berry, I will see who Andrew Berry takes. Andrew Berry's a winner. He and his wife had their first baby, I believe today, maybe yesterday.
It was this morning.
So I mean, it was announced this morning, so I don't know exactly what time she, took her first breath, but like, congratulations, Andrew Berry.
Yeah.
A little girl, I believe her name is Eden. So I want to see who the Browns are, because the Browns are one of those like really interesting teams that we've been talking about for a long time. I know we talked about it, Robert, a couple of days ago about what direction they were going to go. Real quick, I'll say Jared Goff, kind of a winner tonight because they drafted Penei Sewell to the Lions and they did not take a quarterback yet. So nobody who's going to come in and take his job immediately. Yeah. Awesome. And Jared Goff needed a win. I mean, he just
the fact that they haven't drafted a quarterback yet is also a win for Jared Goff. Yeah, he still has his job, which if you're Jared Goff over the last few months, that's an upside.
So I like that. Okay, he's about Roger. Well, are we doing the draft.
I can't believe they made me wait like 90 seconds for the Justin
was
Fields
hilarious.
thing.
Seeing Goodell having like a stack of cards to read through, it was just the best. That was like a comedy bit. Just like, oh, yep, we're going to ... I
can't even believe that happened. I don't care nearly as much about the Browns pick. I do like the Browns. I love their offseason. I am invested in what the Browns are doing. I will say not quite as much as my team drafting its quarterback of the future. I'm slightly less invested in the Browns than I am in what just happened with the Bears earlier today.
I mean, this is this whole live stream has taken like such a drastic turn. I mean, I'm just trying to imagine how differently this night would have played out if
it was just
so. Bears would have
emotionally exhausted. I can't believe I'm still sitting upright right now. I'm just going to collapse onto the floor when we're
Have you already ordered like a Justin Fields jersey?
Oh no, that will happen.
Oh, Greg Newsome
in a second here.
I like that.
I like it.
Yeah,
like it.
Love it.
Like it a lot.
Love it.
That makes a lot of sense.
Cemented the place of Andrew Berry on my winners list that I will be posting later tonight.
God, I love this. Yeah. All right, Lindsay, we're gonna get back with you a little bit later.
We'll do some losers when I come back.
We will definitely do some losers when I come back.
All right, talk to you guys later.
See you, Lynn.
Love the Greg Newsome pick.
I do too.
Love it. It makes all this.
It makes all the sense. They're going to go again. Another team's going to go with the premium positions. They're forward thinking. They're modern thinking. Kevin Stefanski and Andrew Berry. Of course, they're going to go for a premium position and get a good player.
So I think it's that obviously. But if you look at the way the depth chart has shaken out over the course of free agency, you go get Troy Hill. You go get John Johnson.
Yep.
You already have Grant Delpit coming back from last year. It's almost like adding another rookie this season. He's going to be healthy. He's 100% healthy now. You have Ronnie Harrison there. I think that allows them to have some multiplicity with their safety spots. They're going to play a lot of three safeties. A lot of three safeties this year with those guys, I believe. Now you add Greg Newsome to a cornerback group that has Troy Hill and Denzel Ward. Greedy Williams, I think, in their minds was always a bonus.
Yeah.
Whatever they were going to get from him this year was a bonus.
Yeah.
Now, proof with a Greg Newsome pick. And beyond, and then you look at the front seven, they add Clowney. It doesn't make pass rusher as demanding of a need. And a lot of the pass rushers come off the board already.
Yes.
Guys that maybe they might have considered at this spot. The front four, for right now, you got enough bodies to make that work. Malik Jackson, Clowney, everything else. With Newsome, though, it's beyond just what they need in the depth chart. Skill set wise, it's perfect.
Yeah.
You know who he reminds me of? Troy Hill.
That makes all the sense in the world.
Really funny because when you watch Newsome, really, really good feel in zone coverage.
Yes.
Really good feet, good awareness. I just think
willing to come up. Like,
that's exactly right. And if you're going to play, I think that at their core, they are that Seattle cover 3 type team, even though I do think the variation, we're going to see.
They had to get through it without being able to do it.
We're going to see some of the stuff that we saw from Staley and the too high and everything else, but it's going to be zone based. And I think this is a guy, smart, awareness, everything else. To me, it's a perfect fit for what
makes all the sense. And what you said too, you brought up Greedy Williams. It's just like the offensive line. It's where you just invest into this position, you get bodies, good bodies, and then all of a sudden the guy that's your number 3 is your number 4.
Yeah,
right? And you're
exactly.
Say the Browns.
Same thing with Ronnie Harrison not having to start in 2 safety sets now. It's the exact same thing.
Say the Browns play the Bills now. Hey, they can line up against 10 personnel and they're fine. Hey, they play the Dolphins. Those are all AFC teams. They play the Chiefs. Hey, we can line up with your fast guys because we have bodies, and injuries are going to happen. These guys get hurt. It is what it is. Now you can go through games where you're just like, hey, guess what? This guy can get us through it. We have spot starters at corner. That is what, if you hit on these guys, it's like you have a position of corner, and it's a strength that is so rare to have in the NFL.
I love what the Browns have done.
Yeah,
it's so you look at the offense. The offense is set. They knew that coming into the offseason. It's like, we're good.
We did that last year. We addressed it last year.
We're good. Yep. We don't need to address this. They were going to go defense with all of their resources. And if you look at the ways they added on defense, it is perfectly aligned with modern football in terms of resource allocation and scheme.
Yep.
You need depth in the back 7. Don't spend on linebackers. They signed Anthony Walker, and that's it.
Fine.
And variation up front.
Yep.
Give me chaos creators. Give me guys that can play a multitude of positions. I think they could absolutely draft another pass rusher in this draft.
That's what I was
then,
gonna say.
if you have a guy that's just part of your rotation,
yep.
Your nickel packages are Jadeveon Clowney and Malik Jackson inside. You have with Myles Garrett on the outside. You have whoever this is. I think bringing in a huge rotation of guys, having everybody play 65% of the snaps.
Yep.
Keep Clowney healthy, maybe.
Keep him fresh.
that's what they're doing. I really love it.
Yep, it makes all the sense.
You know why? It's how I would do it.
Yeah, and also
that's exactly why.
Like a guy like Clowney makes so much more sense there than he did in Tennessee. In Tennessee,
he's the number 1 guy. Now he's the number 3 guy.
Yes, and he's a super number 3.
And you're getting paid. He's getting paid like a number 3.
Oh, I know. And people are like squinting at that contract. It's like, why? Like, that's what you
one year.
Yeah, 1 year. Yeah, I'm
like that
fine
shit on
with
fire.
Yeah, exactly. How many guys just like exactly? You just burn through it. There's so many shitty signings that guys just burned 12 million or 8 million guaranteed. No, but that's the thing is you're bumping these guys down to more manageable positions. It's just good team building. It's now you got Clowney who. Yeah, now he's a super number 3. Now he only has to play snaps that are good for him, where he doesn't have to.
Roles that are good for him. My favorite thing I've ever seen from him is when he was the spinner on those Texans teams, and you could put him over the guard and let him wreak havoc. And that's exactly what you could possibly
whack
do
the
here.
guard and open up a huge hole like the size of the Red Sea. And then now you're going to have Myles Garrett looping around. You're going to have all these guys up front looping around. No, it just makes a lot of sense.
All right. Let's get to Dane. Let's bring him back in here. I have a lot of stuff that I want to go over with him. Dane, how you doing, bud?
I'm pumped.
Good.
12 out of 26 in my mock draft, so I'm feeling good.
Look at you. Attaboy.
Greg Newsome, baby.
How do you? So we've just been gushing about that. What do you like about the fit with Greg Newsome going to Cleveland?
This is a great example of when value meets need meets traits. This is exactly what the Browns look for. They want young players. They want productive players. They want athletic players. And I mean, that sounds very simplistic. Every team wants that, but specifically that's what the Browns are looking for. And they need cornerback help. Greg Newsome made a lot of sense. He led the Big Ten in passes defended last year. A really natural player with his athleticism. He can play man, can play zone. The FBI, the football intelligence, is outstanding. Yes. The only thing you're worried about, and this is why I worry he might not be a fit for the Browns, is he missed at least 3 games each of the last 3 years. We know the Browns have dealt with Greedy Williams and the shoulder issues. Denzel Ward has missed some time. So I was a little worried about that fit. If they were just worried about keeping him on the field, but the traits and the talent I thought matched up perfectly with what the Browns were looking for.
Let's stick with corners here. Caleb Farley comes off the board at 22 to Tennessee. One of the biggest question marks about the entire draft, because we know the talent is there. We know that he is arguably the most talented corner among this entire group. The range he went in, the fit with Tennessee, how do you see all the pieces coming together with Farley going to the Titans?
I think if he's healthy, if injuries are not a concern at all, I think he's the first defensive player drafted. He has that type of talent. And, I think, Nate, you mentioned it with Jeffrey Simmons, the Titans not afraid to take chances, big swings. I was really curious how Tennessee would attack this first round after the Isaiah Wilson debacle last year. Would they be more conservative this year with that first round pick? Turns out not at all. They're not afraid to take chances on players that they believe in. And as long as you are comfortable with the medicals, Caleb Farley as a talent is A+. And so, we'll see when he's able to get on the field, when he's able to, get back from that back procedure. But he has just different burst. The way he moves, it's just a little bit different than most.
And that size too, man. I mean, that's the thing that just jumps out to me. When you can be 6'2", over 200, and not only be as smooth as he is, but just have the acceleration that he has, the catch-up speed.
Just that quick twitch. That's just so
rare. Slater wishes he had that arm length. I mean,
So I want to.
Unique.
We hit on this a little bit before they made the pick. Najee Harris going to Pittsburgh. Not only that, Travis Etienne going to Clemson. What do you make of that as a 1-2 punch at 24 and 25?
Yeah, I mean, we knew Najee Harris was going to happen. We kind of touched on that. Will the Steelers' run game be better with Najee Harris? Yeah, it should be. Najee Harris is a good player and a guy that is going to help them in the passing game. I think he's a really natural receiver. With this Big Ben small window for the Steelers to compete, I understand.
It's a very small window. It's open by about 3 inches right now.
Yeah, it might be a window that's 4 games, and who knows? But like we touched on it, the running game, there's a lot more that they need to fix here besides just the running back. So that'll be interesting to see how that plays out. And then when you look at the Jaguars, Urban Meyer has made it no secret he wants to be the fastest team in the NFL. And so they do that with Travis Etienne. And I feel good for Etienne. He came back for his senior year because he said he wanted to be a first-round pick. And he was able to do that. I think some of the improvements that he made as a blocker, as a receiver, And good on Clemson, too, for giving him those opportunities to show that he could progress in those areas. And I think that's what helped him be the pick here. And it's interesting, James Robinson, an undrafted rookie last year, had over 1,000 yards. And so they just add another horse to that backfield. So it'll be interesting to see how they use both those players. Do they use ETN as more than just your traditional running back? Is he going to be a little bit of those Percy Harvin packages? How are they going to use him? Will be interesting with that Urban Meyer, Darrell Bevel scheme.
Yeah. I mean, if I'm a team that needs a running back right now, I'm on the phone. I mean, I'm seeing what the Jaguars want for an undrafted free agent that was not picked by the current regime there.
Yeah.
Because even if the combination of those guys is interesting and intriguing, I still think that's a phone call I would 100% make.
It's very telling after he had his meeting with Urban Meyer and management there that they said, what's the biggest thing you had to prove on? He goes, speed. And it's like, well, I think you are what you are, James. And also they draft ETN. So it's like, okay, they're like, well, we can't find it here, so we're going to find it somewhere else.
Dane, last thing I wanted to ask you about here, what do you think about Darrisaw lasting as long as he did with Minnesota? I mean, again, it's all this stuff in the speculation about where guys are going to go and their pre-draft value. It's speculation. But Darrisaw was somebody that we thought might go in the top half of the first round. The Vikings trade down and still managed to get him. What do you think about getting him in that range of the draft and how he fits what Minnesota needs?
Yeah, Darrisaw is such an easy player to like because for a big man, the body control, the balance, it's just really natural. Good feet. The one thing that really bothered me with him, and I know this is a sticking point for a lot of coaches, is I thought he was a 95% player. You wish he was a better finisher out there. And I think that
their plays off. You see it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that bothered a lot of teams. It did. And that's something that, could be a reason why he fell a little bit. But he's a good player. And I think it's going to be interesting for the Vikings now because I think that internally they wanted to move Ezra Cleveland out to tackle and get better on the interior. Now, do they keep Darrisaw at left tackle, then keep Ezra Cleveland inside? Either way, I think they're going to have some options and just a great fit in that offense with that scheme. And the Vikings, we know they love to trade back, and I think it worked out really well for them in this scenario.
With one of those guys that when you have a player, an offensive lineman specifically, that has a lot of boxes that he checks off and there's one or two question marks, the first thing I look at, especially at that position, who's the offensive line coach he's going to?
Yeah.
Who is the guy now that is going to be tasked with seeing if we can check off that final box? Going to Rick Dennison, who has done this for a million years.
The same scheme.
In the same scheme.
Yep.
I think that's different to me than going to a place where the offensive line coach has been there for a year.
Yeah.
This is his first job.
He was an assistant line coach.
Yeah. Whoever for however long.
Yeah.
I always pay attention to that stuff, and I do think that is a nice situation for Christian Darrisaw. Dane, we'll be back with you here as the draft wraps up, buddy. We'll really appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
See ya.
Nate?
Yeah. There he is.
Ravens drafted Rashad Bateman.
I know. And it's so tough for me because as much as I love Rashad Bateman, he was my receiver too for anyone that's listening to our podcast this month or read the Bleacher Report. It's not a great fit.
He's going to get 2 targets a game.
It's not a great fit for him. But
it's not a great fit for him in terms of value. But in terms of volume, but with what the Ravens need,
yes,
it's a perfect
fit with Hollywood Brown and Mark Andrews at tight end. And it's like, okay, now it gives him. So Hollywood Brown is better intermediate vertical. We saw him at Oklahoma, even as a smaller guy.
You don't have to say intermediate. He's just vertical.
Yeah, vertical. But he caught a couple of dig balls. I was like, okay.
But he shouldn't be doing that, and that's why Rashad Bateman is
here.
On
he
his
is,
team.
And I got Rashad Bateman. So now he's going to take over that short and intermediate game that they have because Mark Andrews, even with his drops, is still a dynamic player, especially with all the overs and crossers. So now what you have is a lot of those concepts when you have overs and posts. All right, who do you think is going to be on the post? Hollywood Brown. Who do you think is going to be on the over? Here comes Bateman on the other side.
If you have a bunch of small, fast guys, what is the if you're thinking about gravity and what they create in space, they create space. That's what fast receivers do. They have their own gravitational pull, like a 3-point shooter. You need to do something with that space, though.
Yes.
And when Mark Andrews was the only guy in there, there's no slasher there.
Yes.
And I think that is the concern. There was no slashing option among their pass catchers. And that's exactly what Rashad Bateman is.
Yep.
We talk about this. Can you picture it? Can you see how the pieces fit together? Does it look like a basketball team? There's a reason that people were connecting Rashad Bateman to the Ravens because you can see it. We both love him. We were talking about him earlier today. I know we've referenced lunch a million times, but we were having lunch today. We were talking about him. And the reason that I think that he's such an exciting prospect is because when we talk about route runners, we usually talk about it that way. Like when you say somebody's nice, it's because they're not fast. When the guy is a route runner and that's his best trait, it's like, oh, he's such a savvy route runner. It's because he's not fast.
That's
but
exactly
when you watch Rashad Bateman play, he runs away from people. He's got more giddy up than a guy with his route running nuance often does because they only survive with the route running nuance. He has so much more juice than I expected him to have when I watched him for the first time. And I think that it's a perfect fit. And this team needed something in the passing game. Something. And I think that Rashad Bateman at 27 is more exciting to me than any of the free agent options you could have gotten, than anything else they could have done. I like this more than Corey Davis at $15 million a year.
No, I agree. And yeah, it's such a good point. It's also Minnesota's offense, and it was hilarious because like Tanner Morgan, the quarterback there, was getting pub as like a draftable quarterback. And I was like, if you watch this offense and saw what they did, it's like, no, guys, come on. Because they run so many RPOs. You know who runs a lot of RPOs? Ravens. And it's a lot of slants. And Rashad Bateman is a monster on slants. And that's where you're talking about the pull away speed. And that's where it's shocking sometimes. Because even looking at it, he had a good 10-yard and he had a really good 20-yard 40 split. And it's showing the flying 40. And it shows when he catches those slants. It's like, yeah, it's not that sexy twitch right away. But then also, I was like you said, also he's pulling away from guys. And he does it consistently. And another thing, too, and this cannot be understated enough. Yeah, he's from Georgia. He played in Minnesota in crappy weather. Goes to Baltimore. He's used to it. He's used to wind. He's used to sleet. He's used to bad weather. And that actually matters, especially a team like the Ravens that's going to play deep into the season. You know, that matters. And it really does, especially at the receiver position. You'll see some of these speed guys all of a sudden get into the cold weather like, man, my hands kind of hurt. like that kind of my forearm's kind of hurting right now. That was not a lot of fun getting tackled right there. So getting a guy that can maybe handle that and be productive in that's just like another exterior thing, because I'm just going to hype up Bateman and everything he can do anyway.
So pretty big surprise here. Peyton Turner. Edge rusher from Houston goes in the first round. Our buddy Ben Solak is going to be excited. He was a big Peyton Turner guy.
Big Peyton Turner guy.
Loves Peyton Turner. I liked Peyton Turner. When I turned on the BYU tape and you see him, the length jumps out. To me, the effort jumped out. He plays so hard, but really high cut. I don't really know if he knows what he's doing all the time.
They got rid of Trey Hendrickson, so they need another high effort
high cut, high effort rusher.
Does he have short arms too? I actually don't even know if he has short arms. Then we have a perfect 1-for-1 like replacement right there. Figure that one out.
Oh man. Well, I mean, you look at what the Saints needed. I wouldn't say depth. Edge rusher was the
complete opposite. 35-inch arms.
Oh yes, great.
That's right. That's right.
Great length. Yeah. I should have been able to say that.
If you can't tell, I watched offensive skill guys. My front seven plays a little.
He has great length. That's really what jumps out. You see the levers, you see the effort, but he plays super, super high. I can understand buying into the frame and the physical ability, though. This is probably not a glowing review for Marcus Davenport. So they're his 5th-year option. They still have to make a decision on that. They traded up to get him in the first round. I will say, even if this is going to be considered a reach by somebody, still probably a more prudent choice than trading into the top 10 to draft another defensive player, because, again, doesn't always work out when you do that.
No, exactly. So, and that's why they did it. So it makes a lot more sense.
So I want to go back. We've hit most of the picks as they've happened here. Something I want to touch on that we really haven't talked about yet. Atlanta at 4. I was going back way, way back. Not surprising when everything that we thought was going to happen with that team. If they weren't going to draft the quarterback, and they weren't going to trade back, Kyle Pitts was the option. A couple different things I want to hit. Obviously, you think about Matt Ryan and his contract and what the adjustment they made to it and the restructure that they had. Very, very hard for the Falcons to move on from Matt Ryan in short order. I don't think it necessarily was a vote of confidence and a sign that they were going to stick with him for the next couple of years, but I think it pointed into that direction at least a little bit. $40.5 million dead cap hit in 2022. This means Matt Ryan is going to be around. Matt Ryan is going to be the Falcons quarterback for the foreseeable future. And that's exciting because if you look at the rest of their offensive personnel, this team can be really good. Offense really fast. Arthur Smith, we both really like. We really like Arthur Smith. We think that he's a fantastic play caller. My question for you is not, does Kyle Pitts make the Falcons offense more exciting or better? That's a given. You drop him in there with Julio, which we'll see if Julio's still there. Julio, Calvin Ridley,
really, that's all you need
Ryan,
to say.
and like that, it's going to be fun. Are you a little bit worried at the way we saw Arthur Smith use his tight ends in Tennessee, and if that might put a cap on a guy like Kyle Pitts' value? Because when you're doing a lot of play action, your tight ends are going to be in part of the blocking scheme. You're going to have them. They're not going to be in all the time. I want to say that Jonnu Smith last season among qualified tight ends was 34th in route percentage. And this is a guy with some receiving talent.
Yes.
So are you a little bit concerned that dropping Kyle Pitts into a Jonnu Smith-like role artificially depresses what he can be as a receiver?
And we haven't seen real proof of this, but I do think Arthur Smith, what we saw with that Titans offense was, hey, these guys are really good. It's what we talked about all night is, hey, these guys are really good at this thing. Hey, let's accentuate that.
Yeah.
Let's feed Derrick Henry, who gets better and better as he gets more touches, as he wears down the defense. We have a big physical offensive line. Let's pound the rock. Tannehill dropping back is but hey, he's big, he's strong, he's willing to stay in the pocket. That's really good. And create with his legs. That's really good on play action stuff. So it was like, I think they just cranked it up and getting into that. So now with Jonnu Smith had receiving chops, but he was better when he got going. He's not a quick turner, like where he can just come out of a route and he's not going to break off a linebacker or break off a safety that's covering him. He is more of a guy that he's an explosive weapon. He had a ton of yards after the catch the last couple of years, and they also heavily designed some stuff because he was so versatile. I think what Arthur Smith is willing to do is kind of like the fun stuff they did with Jonnu, and then like crank it up.
Just crank it up and
crank it up to 12. And I think we're going to see just like a little more variation because now the strength of that team is a receiving core and a quarterback that's willing to drop back. So I think some stuff that maybe we saw 10% of the time, we'll see now 30, 40% of the time. And the stuff that was, the crazy outside runs and all that, they would hide Jonnu. They had a smart coaching staff. They would hide the guys in a way like Jonnu Smith is working across on slice blocks. He's not the lead point man on duo.
Here's my thing, though. Do you want your number 4 overall pick slicing across the formation and catching the ball in the flat?
But I trust Arthur Smith enough that he's going to like use him how he should.
I'm mostly playing devil's advocate here.
Yes, absolutely.
I tend to agree with you. I think that he's the type of guy who is always searching for the next wrinkle.
Correct.
And we saw that with, I think the best example is the variation in the running game we saw in Tennessee. Is they folded in more power stuff. They said, we can do this. Let's see how that works. I would hope that we're not going to see Kyle Pitts blocking 20% of the time for this offense, where I think he can be a real weapon. Let's stick in the top 10 for right now. Another guy that was considered by many people to be one of the most premium players. We're getting deeper.
We're in the 30s.
We're hour 30 now. Premium players in the draft. Penei Sewell goes at 7 to the Lions. You look at the Lions offensive line now. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
if you're building a team from scratch, okay.
So you go left to right now. Taylor Decker, Jonah Jackson, Frank Ragnow.
Yep.
You bump Vaitai into guard theoretically.
Yep.
Penei Sewell's your right tackle. You're pushing some people around with that group.
Yep. And also Lindsay brought it up. She said Jared Goff's a big winner. I actually do think the Lions are. I think you saw the reaction in the war room or the draft room was receiver, the 2 picks before him. It looked like relief.
Yeah.
They're like, oh my God, Sewell's there. Like, I think that's generally what they were like. They were just like the whole time, just like, oh my God, please no, please no, please no. And then Sewell's there. So it's like, I just think it's smart team building. They got nothing. They're really in the doldrums.
And that's as much as I think, this kind of maybe not completes, but it's a nice piece for their offensive line. Look at what they're building there. That I wouldn't even think about it in those terms. You're starting over.
You're starting
from step 1.
Yep.
And if you're starting from step 1, even if you think Taylor Decker is going to be there for however long, Vaitai's not going to be on that team next year, most likely. Who knows what their offensive line is going to look like 12 months from now. So I think you just need foundational pieces.
Correct.
And that's the entire point of trading Matthew Stafford for multiple first-round picks.
Yep.
It's why we thought they were going to be a candidate to trade out of the number 7 spot. So you have now a block of granite as your right tackle for the next however long.
Yep.
Him and Decker. All right.
Yeah.
Let's build. Let's build. And I'm very excited about that.
I'm just so glad they didn't give in. They're like, they looked at their receiver room with my boy Quintez Cephas as their leading returner receiver, and they didn't get desperate and go, we need DeVonta Smith there. They went, nope. We're going to go building block premium position, and we're going to go inside out.
But that's why I love what they did in free agency.
Correct.
I know it's hard to get excited about Tyrell Williams and Rashad Perriman,
but those are fine.
You can live
They're
with
placeholders.
That.
They're fine.
You can live with that. I
yes.
think that's exactly what you do. It's like those guys are workable. Those two on the outside is workable.
Yes.
And that's exactly what they did. And I think that it's a good place to start. We talked about this with Brandon Thorne a lot. I think Sewell was billed as this all-time offensive line prospect. And he's not necessarily that, because he doesn't check every box. There are some length concerns. He didn't do a lot of just.
He's a Jamar Chase of tackle prospects. Kind of he's very good prospect, but has a couple things missing.
But if you can do that at 7, that's totally fine.
That's totally fine.
That's totally fine.
A very good starter.
And I think that there's not a lot of true pass sets compared to other offenses.
Nope.
If we're talking about Mickey Mouse college offenses, the Oregon offenses.
Oh my God.
To the point where Justin Herbert we didn't know if he could play. And now he looks like one of the best young quarterbacks in the NFL.
Yeah.
I think that even if there's some projection involved with the evaluation of a guy like Penei Sewell, when you can have someone who is that easy and fluid of a mover at 330 pounds and who's 20 years old.
Yep. And plays
I'm going to take that. I'm going to figure it out later.
Yes. And it's a tone setter. So now every piece you add on the offense, and then also, like you said, they're going to move people around. Sewell plays with angry. So all of a sudden, the rest of the team, everyone they add from now on, hey, he's setting the tone for the rest of the offense. And that matters when you're building a team. Just getting a guy like that.
Michael Brockers.
Exactly. That's the defensive version of that. So it's like, exactly. You get those tone setters because now you got, okay, that's our, maybe it's not the best player that you get, but it's like, hey, at least now everyone we get, it's just going to be an echo of what that guy is. And it really matters having guys. If your quarterback's not going to be that, because Jared Goff is kind of an easygoing guy. He's competitive, but he's easygoing. If you have that, now you get offensive linemen that are going to be that not rah, but really bring that grit to an offense. That really does matter, especially if you're starting from scratch like they are. 30th pick, Buffalo goes with Greg Rousseau from Miami. Here's the difference between the Bills and some of these other teams. The Bills had a running back mocked to them in the first round. Instead of doing that, they picked an edge rusher. Yeah, because that's what they should be doing in the first round. Thank God, too. They were starting to get ETN was getting mocked to there, and I was like, oh man, I hope not. Because it's like hopefully they're not losing sight of what they are, and it's like good, okay, good. They know, just keep accumulating these types of pieces. Russo got some traits. I mean, he's another guy with 34 and almost half-inch arms. He got 11 and 1/8-inch hands. He's big and long. Kind of a weird projection a little bit. You kind of have to squint a little bit to see it. It's a little bit of an upside pick that you're hoping to get there. Kind of a weird eval a little bit for a lot of people that had to watch the front 7 guys. But Bills are, hey, you're at pick 30, you could do a lot worse than this, especially if you're going for an edge piece, because there's not usually edge guys that are going to be true freaks or true top of the class are going to be literally top of the class.
And there are questions about him. Obviously, he didn't play this year, and the same sort of questions we've had about a ton of other prospects. But if you look at this Bills roster, that would be the number one thing I would have added to this group was edge rushing juice. And that's why I was intrigued by the idea of J.J. Watt on this team. That bringing him in and Watt, a guy rushing inside and outside, some of his best reps came inside, and you have the length there. It's honestly similar to, he's not as powerful as this guy is, but another very, very tall Miami pass rusher is Calais Campbell. You can bring him inside a little bit. And this team, edge rushing depth is as important to this team as any other team because of the way they allocate their snaps. You have guys that are playing 60% of the time. And even if you spent a second-round pick on A.J. Epinesa last year, Jerry Hughes is my age. I don't know how much longer Jerry Hughes is going to be around, even though he's playing at a reasonably high level. Mario Addison is expensive. I know he took a pay cut this year after what he signed for last year, but Mario Addison is not a long-term answer. I think Brandon Beane is really good at understanding the timelines and how they're different. He uses free agency to fill needs, and they use the draft to need is always going to influence what you're doing in the draft to some degree. But I think a guy like Ed Oliver is another really good example. That is a upside. We're finding building blocks in the draft. We're using free agency to plug immediately.
A good piece right away. And also it's you spoke to just the 60% of snaps, but also how they play with a lot of off-ball linebackers. So that's where edge guys really are important because they have to do both.
Length.
Correct.
You got a guy with big arms keeping people off of your guys on the second level.
Set the edge as opposed to your Sam or your outside linebacker doing it for you or you're doing it with movement. They have a lot of upfield snaps where they have to use their length. So that just makes a lot of sense in that aspect as well.
How long are your arms?
34 and a half.
Oh, You got him by an eighth of an inch. Then he's 34 3/8.
I know I picked the wrong position.
So,
Dad, I know you're watching. So yeah, way to go.
You look at, I mean, the guys that his mock draftable comps. Carlos Dunlap is in the top 5. Jason Pierre-Paul is in the top 7. I mean, it's just like those types of guys. You could go up into somebody like that, where the run defense part of it is important. Everything else, that's
and that's funny what you're saying, Jason Pierre-Paul too, because he was kind of a weird eval too, because he was a JUCO guy and like a one-year starter kind of guy at South Florida. Actually, we were supposed to be part of the same recruiting class at UCF, and he was not an academic qualifier, so that's why he went junior college and ended up at South Florida. But anyways, with that, Jason Pierre-Paul had, I would say, pure better film than this, but that is kind of what you're hoping for. Is you're kind of like, is he going to be the 12 sack guy? Probably not, but he's going to be a useful starter, and maybe you do get that pinch of star quality in him.
But this was the range and this type of class. Like you said, a pinch better film. Do you love him in the first round compared to some of the other guys? Maybe not. He might be a fringe first or second round guy, but you're picking 30th. It's a position of need, and there's upside there. There's clear upside there. Correct. I think that this range, the way he fits with all the other pieces they have, I think it makes total sense.
Correct. And also, you're not like, it's a dearth. This edge class is not great. So probably the second time they pick, probably not, no one's going to be there that they would like at that kind of position. So it makes a lot of sense.
Kent, do we want to bring in Dane one more time here? So we're at 31, Baltimore picking again. Obviously, this was part of the trade with the Chiefs for Orlando Brown Jr. You and I have not talked about that yet. I don't know if we want to declare a winner and loser there, but what did you make of that deal from both sides?
I thought it was a win-win. I mean, honestly, if I, gunned ahead, but also it's just like, the Chiefs needed it. Hey, Orlando Brown wanted to play left tackle. I think it was just everybody wanted that trade. At first, I was like, oh, that is kind of a lot, but I was like, what else are they going to get? He's going to be a tangible, good starter. And then not only was it like he just played right tackle and okay, we got to hope that his college film homes up for he had 300 plus snaps at left tackle last year and he held up. And so it's like, okay. But the one thing is going to be interesting is it's going to be such a different scheme and what he's asked to do. Like he's not going to run a lot of gap, GT counter that they ran with Lamar Jackson. He's going to have to drop back a lot. Thankfully,
it's such a different ask. It is night and day.
It is. And luckily, Mahomes can make it work where he can bounce around with guys edging with edge rushers and stuff. So a big body might kind of give him more room to operate. So that'll be interesting. But it's
having your quarterback drop to 11 yards and try to throw the ball 45 yards downfield is much, much different than jump setting guys 13 times a game.
And then running GT the next play, then pulling. Yeah, it's much different because now it's going to be a lot of zone. Like he's going to be a zone blocker a lot. And he's going to have to climb to the second level a whole lot. Yeah, he can move for a big body, but doing it once or twice is different than doing it 20 times.
All right, let's bring Dane back in here because there are some defensive players that are going higher than we thought. And this is exactly his area of expertise when it is not ours. Dane, Peyton Turner, Eric Stokes coming off the board at 28 and 29. There had been some first-round buzz about Peyton Turner coming into today, but still maybe a surprise to see him go this high to the Saints.
Yeah, I think a little bit. Not only him going this high, but over Jason Oweh, over Azeez Ojulari, Tryon, some of these other pass rushers. A little surprising to see him go above. But with Peyton Turner, I mean, it's not hard to like his film. He's a high cut player, and that he's still figuring things out. But in terms of his length, in terms of the effort is outstanding. And that's something that was one of my main takeaways from his film. The wingspan and just the way he would make plays 30 yards downfield that he has no business making. So he has people. He has the violence that you want. He has just kind of the foundational traits of a good pass rusher. It might take a little bit of time for him to get there.
I like how he can string moves together. It's not just effort. It's not misguided effort. He's always making his way toward the quarterback and trying to string stuff together, which I think is a really good kind of just fundamental element of being a young pass rusher and having room to grow. Eric Stokes going 29 to the Packers. Dane, what do you think of Stokes and the fit there and how he fits in just this group of corners and where you expected him to go?
Yeah, I mean, I expected one of those Georgia corners to get in there, whether it was going to be Tyson Campbell, Eric Stokes. And so I don't think it's a big surprise here. 6'1", 194 with 4.2 speed. There's only so many humans on this planet that are doing that. So, and I think with Stokes, he has some scheme versatility to him. I think that in terms of his route recognition, some of the transitional stuff, he needs to get better. But, this is a guy that has not been playing cornerback all that long. He's still learning, still developing. And when you have a guy with those type of raw traits, just like I said, not many humans on this planet able to do that. 32 3/4-inch arms. So there's a lot to like about, what he could be. And I think the fact that he had 4 interceptions this past year after 0 coming in, I think he took the necessary steps that told teams that, hey, I'm headed in the right direction.
So if you want to get excited about DeVonta Smith, go watch DeVonta Smith's tape this year against Eric Stokes, who was the 31st overall pick in this year's draft.
Yeah, exactly. And also, with Stokes too and going to the Packers, it's like, at least have a really good corner to kind of help. He doesn't have to be the number 1 guy right away. Totally. It's another opportunity cost kind of thing where it's like, hey, they have a guy that's really a 1A, like true 1A corner. So it's like, okay, he can be the number 2 guy. Like you say, he's a developmental guy, or at least a little bit of that.
And they have Kevin King there.
They also have Kevin King, exactly.
So if they need to bring him along a little bit slowly, I think it makes
take some load off of him.
100%.
Yep.
Dane, what did you make of the Greg Rousseau evaluation? Obviously, he was one of those guys with not playing this year. There's a wrench thrown into that, but there's clearly traits. There's clearly upside. Where did you come down on him?
I gave him an early 2nd round grade. I don't think it's a huge reach here. We talk about the length, easy to like. He has some get off to him. And just that stretched out frame, the way he can, use that to get inside of blockers. I thought he was what worried me was he was at his best when he reduced inside and it was able to play over the A gap and, use that initial quickness, that length to beat up interior blockers. Normally when you draft a pass rusher, an edge rusher in the 1st round, you want him winning on the outside more than on the inside. And so I think that it's a faith-based projection. I think if he hits, if he, does everything he needs to do, he could be a Chandler Jones type of player. That's a big if. He still has a long way until he gets there. But I can understand why you're banking on just the raw traits that he offers. We have 1 year of tape on him. That's it. Yeah. And this is a guy that didn't move to the defensive line until his senior year of high school. Missed his 1st year at Miami because of an injury. And then 2019, that's when he really emerged and put himself on the NFL radar. And then, of course, he opted out this past year. So there is a lot of faith that takes into drafting a guy like Gregory Rousseau that early. But the Bills had no problem drafting AJ Epinesa in the 2nd round last year, who was not an athletic tester. And it's the same thing with Rousseau, not a big athletic tester, more of a straight line type of guy. But I understand why they went pass rusher there. Maybe just a little surprised they went Rousseau over Owe and Tryon and some of those other pass rushers available.
Owe goes to Baltimore. I can just see it in my mind, because that is a defense and a scheme where you can just bet on traits.
Yep.
If he's going to be rushing from a lot of alignments, and you're going to be standing him up and really just leaning on his physical ability, again, I can just see it. I can just picture him in that Raven scheme name.
Yeah, there's no question. Yeah. Does he need work on his counters, on just the overall rush plan? Yeah, of course. But when you watch his film, he's being disruptive. The 0 sacks thing is going to be what is talked about with Owe, but he's a guy that got to the backfield, and disruption is production. And if you're able to impact what the quarterback is doing, then you're doing your job as a pass rusher. So Owe, with the freaky traits, with where you expect him to be in 2 years, in 3 years. This is just a very Baltimore type of pick. Good players seem to find Baltimore every year in the first round.
Year, right?
And it's happened twice this year.
Yeah. It's funny because they've been so good at drafting developmental pass rushers, and eventually those guys come along slowly and they become really productive players. It happened with Judon. It happened with Zadarius Smith. It happened with Pernell McPhee a couple years earlier.
Yep.
They usually go later than the 1st round.
Yes.
But they still have shown a real penchant for being able to say, this is our development plan for this guy who maybe isn't going to be able to contribute from day one, but we have an idea of what he can eventually become for this. The proof is there.
Well, that's like with Zadarius Smith. He played with Bud Dupree at Kentucky, and he was fine. He was like a good, he actually was a good, solid prospect, but he was missing a couple things. He wasn't checking all the boxes. He checks all the boxes as far as physically and everything, and that's what Baltimore does. Is all of us are talking about right now, is they develop these guys, but now they're taking a guy with traits.
Upper
as opposed to missing like
shelf.
Judon, missing a couple movements, stuff like that. And it's like, okay, they're going to develop it along. And you know what? Again, they have 2 first-round picks. This is a team that can take these risks,
totally.
and the opportunity cost is not as bad as like, hey, they don't have to force this guy and play 60 snaps a game. He can play 30.
Dane, Joe Tryon going 32 to Tampa. I thought pass rusher made sense for them 100%. Speaking of percentages, Jason Pierre-Paul played one of the highest snap rates in the NFL for edge guys last season. I want to say that Shaq Barrett was up there in the top 10 as well. A rotation at that spot. Easily, you could talk yourself into it. This is a guy with great length in Joe Tryon from Washington. How do you feel like he fits in Tampa Bay with what they have already?
Yeah, I think in every mock draft I had a pass rusher going 32. It just kind of changed every time. Sometimes it's Owe, sometimes it's Tryon, and it makes a lot of sense, especially with Pierre-Paul. He's in the final year of his deal. Yep. He might not be back next year, so Tryon's able to be a sub-package rusher as a rookie, and then take over as the starter. He's a guy that if you're going to draw up a pass rusher, it's kind of what it looks like. There's a lot of Marcus Davenport to try on. 6'5", 260, 34-inch arms. Yeah, so tested really well. Another opt-out, but his 2019 stuff, 12.5 tackles for loss, 8 sacks. A player who's still another, in the development phase, and still learning. But the traits and what he's shown up to this point, easy to see why he's a first-round pick.
He had a couple snaps against Sewell that made me sit up in my chair, where that length really jumps out. He's getting into his chest. And like we're talking about, if you're taking a guy at 32, you have 2 premium starters at that position. He can come along slowly. You can fold him into what you're doing. He doesn't have to be there for you right now, but at a premium position.
Correct.
We're setting up succession plans. You get rotations. Way to kind of, we're talking about staving off defensive regression. Adding one more high upside rusher and high upside position is the way you often do that. Dane, thank you so much for humoring us tonight and playing in our little sandbox here as we were talking about the draft. I sincerely appreciate all of the insight that you provided on our show here over the last month. The work that you do is invaluable. It is indispensable at this time of year. Congratulations on the first round being in the book. I hope you get a little bit of sleep after this weekend is over, buddy. Really, really appreciate all the time.
Hey, I'm just along for the ride. You guys are doing great. I'm gonna hang up and work on my second round mock. So
of course you are.
So before you go, I lied. Most interesting guys you feel are still on the board.
Owusu Koromoa, Notre Dame.
Yep. I know you love him. Are you surprised he fell?
Yeah, I mean, I think that he is not an ideal fit for every defense. We know that he's not a traditional stack backer. I mean, he is. It takes a little bit of creativity. But still, we saw Isaiah Simmons go in the top 10 last year. They're different players, but you would think that a defense would have found a way to use him in the first round.
Barmore, the Cardinals had, they filled it with another guy.
Exactly. Christian Barmore, not really a surprise when you consider some of the makeup issues there. Ojulari was flagged for his knee, so not a huge surprise there. Tevin Jenkins, there was some stuff that came out late that were unflattering, so I don't know that that's a big surprise. I think Elijah Moore that might be the biggest surprise. Yeah. I thought especially seeing Tony go over him, I thought Elijah Moore, good chance he was going to go in the top 32, and that didn't happen.
Awesome. Dane, thank you very much, buddy. Good luck on the mock. Good luck surviving the next couple days. We will catch up with you a little bit further down the road, my friend.
All right, take care, guys.
Thanks, Dane.
Guys, that is all we got. Wow, we did it.
We did it.
It is 11:08 Central Time. We still have enough time to just celebrate what just happened tonight. I still have not
20
been able
picks
to
ago.
fully process that because we've had to lock into all of this other stuff. Such a fun time doing this. So really enjoyed it. Even if the Justin Fields thing hadn't happened, I'd be enjoying it. But guess what?
It did.
It did. The Bears picked Justin Fields, and we had
awesome.
a fantastic first round. Looking at Rashad Bateman going to the Ravens here as that comes up on the ticker. So many picks that I think we liked, some that were head scratchers, as it will be with every first round.
Correct.
Sincerely appreciate everybody that came to spend the time to do this with us. We wanted to try something new. We wanted to try something a little bit different. Want to take advantage of being able to be in person. I love doing this with you, buddy. It's so good to sit here with you in the same room, chat about some football. This was a blast. We will be back later this week with another podcast, wrapping up the entire draft, looking a little bit forward to the rest of the offseason. Until then, though, thank you guys so much for listening to the Athletic Football Show. We'll talk to you later.